Welcome, everyone. We are now going to start. Welcome. Welcome to Plenary 1. Prime Minister, Director General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this plenary on food systems transformation in practice, successes, challenges, and the way forward. My name is Dr. Corinna Hawkes. I am Director of the Food Systems and Food Safety Division here at FAO, and I'm delighted to be your moderator this morning. We are going to start this plenary with some opening remarks from FAO's Director General. Following a brief video, we are honored to welcome the Prime Minister of Nepal to offer us a keynote. We will then be having 2 panels, and after each panel, we will be having the pre-registered interventions from the floor. We've had a lot of interest in this session, so I will ask everybody now to keep strictly to time. Welcome, thank you for being here, and I would like to invite the Director General of FAO, Dr. Chu Dongyu, onto the stage to offer your remarks.
Thank you. Good morning, Excellencies, ladies, gentlemen. It's the second day. Yeah? I know some of you arrived earlier, some just joined, but no matter who arrived earlier or late, always never to be late. Yeah? So, and before you're too late, and let's work together. Achieving SDGs is only possible if we transform our agri-food system. We know our agri-food system can bring the benefit for people, planet, and prosperity, especially for middle and middle-low income countries. Most of us depend on agri-food systems and rural development. The transformation offers great hope and greater potential. We need to find opportunities and solutions, not only address the challenges. Of course, we are under the challenge, we are under the data-based, evidence-based situation is very important. But I always say solution is more important. No solution, no development, and the problem will be growing from small to bigger. That's the nature of the development, and it's the nature of transformation of agri-food systems together. We need to work together. Question is how to translate the agri-food system transformation into concrete action. So that's why we need a debate. Different countries have different situations, but globally, after 4 years, especially we have an intensive discussion, FAO, the strategy framework, endorsed by the Minister Conference 2 years ago, and that's why we need to support the members to transform agri-food system more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable for better production, better nutrition, better environment, better life, leaving no one behind. Why we start the better production, better nutrition? Look at our original aspiration of FAO. We should start with better production, no matter you are from developing or developed, and also better nutrition. That's the 2 basic meaning of agri-food systems. And then, of course, now more and more people care about the better environment. And then now, after the pandemic, more better life, not a better livelihood. No matter you are from developing or developed countries, better life means better quality of life. From the childhood to the senior age, we need a better quality of life. And agriculture and agricultural food systems can play the basic role. I had a challenge, a discussion with my colleagues from TEDARAS, WHO DG, I said, health starts from the health food. We are not the health from started the take medicine. Every day we start with health food, and then you have built the fundamental for the health life. So working together, share the experience, we can address these challenges and convert them into opportunity for the change. Breaking down the barriers to implementation means we need to do things different. We need to change our business model. We need to change the way we're working together. FAO continue to advocate for food and agriculture to be recognized as a part of an interrelated system. It's one of the part of the bigger system. We are not all. We just play our own part. Where all the partners work together collectively and in coordination to transform a global agri-food system. And dear colleagues, effort to transform a global agri-food system cut across a number of the sectors, including agriculture, climate, biodiversity, trade, and nutrition, and of course, above all, and the climate crisis is real. Yeah? You can see the 4 years I stay here in Rome. I feel it's from the Mediterranean weather to Near East weather. Only 4 years. Yeah? Every year they have something abnormal phenomenon of the climate. First the drought, and then flooding, and then drought again, and the flooding, now heat wave. Yeah? And like my childhood, when I was a kid in my village, yeah, it's a 39 degree, 90% humidity. That's not a Mediterranean weather. So, FAO, we want to build one FAO because we offer the service from different perspectives of the different members. Developing country, you can offer the experience, the lessons, not only experience. And developed country, we can learn from you and avoid some mistakes you already made maybe 100 years ago or 50 years ago. That's the share economy. That's share the knowledge. And of course, we need to increase the coordination efforts, strengthen the coordination mechanism. And then also we link the short-term and the long-term. Because short-term, a lot of politicians, especially depend on the term. 3 years, 5 years, and they finish. But the people and the nature, there are no terms. That's why I come to FAO from day one. I said, no, I don't care too much short term. I do care the generation term, because we prepare for our next generation. When you get older without moving and you remember your whole life, I hope I have less regret for you and for the members. Let's work together in scientific-based, evidence-based, no other based. Only the solution we have based on data and evidence and the science. And they found a different approach, different solutions based on your local conditions. Some big country may be one province, one state, one county different from others. Some small island state, you look small, but they have a bigger ocean. They have a bigger undersea territory. So even more difficult to manage. So we have to understand the different nature of the members of FAO and offer tailored service from the policy, from the innovation, and from the investment. That's why I established the World Food Forum. Now I said today is more ministers and more civil society, academic people. So I encourage you to use the FAO new platform. You know, from traditional agricultural economy to the industry economy to the knowledge-based economy, what a difference. Agricultural economy based on the products shared with your neighbors. Industry economy based on the shared cross-country, across the continent. And now digital economy, or knowledge-based economy, shared through the platform. That's why the e-commerce and others so important. So some big export countries, you have to use this platform. Some small state import-dependent countries, also you have to use this platform to find the tailored partners and the investors, the service providers for your own transformation of agriculture and rural development. For that, FAO willing to offer the high quality of service and let you play. You are owner. You are partner of FAO in your hand. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dongyu, for making those important remarks and for reminding us that the next generation matters so much and the long term matters so much. And for making this point, I think that many of us will agree with that in order to make change, we need to do things differently. We need to think differently. Thank you very much indeed. Now, the topic of this plenary is about the progress that we have made since the UN Food Systems Summit in 2021. It's food systems transformation in practice, successes, challenges, and the way forward. And I want to share with you a video which sets out why sharing our experiences of successes and challenges is just so important. Over to the video, please.
We all care about food and agriculture. We all have a role to play in ensuring we are delivering solutions to serve people, planet, and prosperity. But to do so, we need to work as part of a system, the food system. If we recognize that all the work we do is interconnected, we will be able to work together more effectively to ensure that the food system works in harmony to produce enough food. Food that is nutritious and safe. Food that brings benefits for the planet and the people involved in producing it, now and for future generations. Taking this systems approach will accelerate the achievement of SDG 2 and all other sustainable development goals. Acting in silos in a way that we are isolated from each other is no longer an option. We have to think and act differently to achieve the transformation we seek. Since the UN Food Systems Summit in 2021, we have accelerated action towards this systemic change, but the path is hard. Sharing our successes and our challenges means we can learn from and inspire each other. We can help each other overcome the challenges to coordination that disrupt progress. To continue on the way forward, we must transform our mindsets, our institutional structures, our ways of working. The work is hard, but possible. Let's work together for collective action. Let's share what we learned so we all benefit from our shared experience. This way, we can get agriculture and food systems working for people, planet, and prosperity, leaving no one behind.
So a strong message there about the importance of sharing our experiences, an important message about working together as a system. And it's the sharing of experiences that we'll be doing today. And I'm delighted to invite the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Nepal to start this process of sharing experiences in your keynote address. Prime Minister.
Thank you for the introduction. Mr. Director General of FAO, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, let me thank you, Mr. Chair, for holding this plenary session on this important theme. This provides us valuable opportunity to assess the progress made so far since the Food System Summit in 2021 and chart a way forward with scaled-up innovations. Affording healthy diet was difficult for almost 3 billion people in 2020. Millions were suffering from acute hunger. The COVID-19 pandemic only worsened this scenario, while the climate crisis and conflicts on different parts further accentuated the problem. While we are now in the phase of recovery from pandemic, achieving SDG 2 on zero hunger will look uncertain. We need to fight the battle against hunger and food insecurity more resolutely. And transforming our food system is akin to building a fortress against hunger. Distinguished delegates, modern food system falls short in providing a pathway for sustainable future. Current food systems have eroded biodiversity, exacerbated inequality, and propelled unsustainable production and consumption. Moreover, such systems have worsened climate change by contributing to greenhouse gas emissions and loss of indigenous practice. In many cases, we have also seen worsening of public health with increasing incidence of non-communicable diseases. Therefore, our endeavor to transformation of food systems should be able to address such multiple challenges. It is equally important that food system contributes to improving livelihood, advancing economic development, and enhancing quality of life. Such transformation would lead to more equitable, resilient, and sustainable food system. Excellencies, let me share few specific measures that Nepal has taken to transform the food system. We are steadfast to the implementation of the Right to Food and Food Sovereignty Act 2018, which is a strong legal framework for sustainable food system in Nepal. It is an important instrument for improving food governance and policy coherence in health, agriculture, food security, and nutrition. Following the UN Food System Summit 2021, we organized national and provincial level food system dialogues with relevant stakeholders to examine the existing food systems, understand vulnerabilities, and design pathways to transform them. We then prepared Food System Transformation Strategic Plan 2022 to 2030 to streamline and link the action toward 2030 agenda for achieving all sustainable development goals. Nepal remains committed to develop a sustainable food chain for affordable, safe, healthy, and nutritious diets. We are also focusing on improving agriculture productivity, supporting local farming, and investing in better storage system for minimizing waste. We encourage better public-private partnership for improving infrastructure and value chain. Revitalizing local indigenous food system is our priority, and there is increasing investment and interest in indigenous food grain like millet. Excellencies, transforming food system face a myriad of challenges, including low productivity, high post-production losses, frequent climatic shocks, and weak climate resilience. As an LDC, we also face additional challenges such as lack of adequate storage, markets, cold chains, low level of mechanization, high production cost, weak market linkages, and uneven distribution system. Funding gap is the biggest challenge to implement plan activities for the capacity development of government and other stakeholders at different level of food system transformation. In conclusion, I urge all to join hands in our collective endeavor to transform the food system that not only sustain our physical well-being, but also empowers our communities, preserve our environment, and ensure sustainable future for all. I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for being so open to share with us not only your successes and the progress that you have made, but also your challenges. Thank you. So we designed this session specifically to provide you with an opportunity to share your experiences of food systems transformation. And we did this because we know that you have taken action. As nation states, as cities, as communities, as UN and regional institutions, as the private sector, as civil society, and so on, as actors across food systems. You have taken action to put into place policies and practices all the way along the food chain, in multiple dimensions, in economy, environment, in society, in health and nutrition. We know from the evidence that you are increasingly putting food systems into your national development plans and national strategies. We know that you are increasingly putting into place new processes on governance, on coordination, on inclusive participation and financing. So you have experiences to share. Experiences of progress, of successes, and good practice that can inspire all of us to take action. But of course, you also face challenges. All of us working to make change in food systems face blockages, face bottlenecks, when we try and convert what we have written on paper into practice, the implementation gap. And we're all trying to find a way through. And for that, we must learn from each other. And that's what we're going to be doing today. You've already heard from the Director General and the Prime Minister. We're now going to hear from 5 distinguished panelists who will share with us their learnings. So I would like to invite the first 5 panelists onto the stage. Please. I'm delighted to welcome Ms. Estherine Lisinji Fotabong, Director of Agriculture, Food Systems and Environmental Sustainability of the African Union Development Agency. The Honourable Dr. Mohammed Abdur Razak, Minister of Agriculture of Bangladesh. Her Excellency Mariam bint Mohammed Saeed Harab Amheri, the Minister of Climate Change and Environment of the United Arab Emirates. Welcome. Ms. Jennifer Lester Moffitt, Undersecretary for Marketing and Regulatory Programs at the United States Department of Agriculture. Welcome. And Ms. Afshan Khan, Coordinator of the Scaling Up Nutrition Movement. Welcome to all, and thank you for being here. So I'd like to start with you. You should have a microphone on your seat and a translation function there as well. So, as part of your engagement with the UN Food Systems Summit, the African Union Development Agency set out an African common position on food systems. And I've read this document. I'd recommend that you all read it. It provided a comprehensive overview of actions for Africa. What I'd like to ask you to share is, where have you seen the most progress across the continent since the summit, and what is the biggest challenge that you still face?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator, and good morning to all the participants. Well, transforming the African food system is a complex process, requiring a coordinated effort across several sectors: agriculture, environment, health, and development in general. And this requires a system approach. as the Director General mentioned earlier. That said, I have to say Africa has made continuous progress, steady progress towards the transformation of its food system. You will know we have the CAADP-Malabo framework, and of course the Common African Position that you mentioned. The Common African Position is implemented as part of the process of implementing CAADP-Malabo. And to date, we have 44 African countries that have implemented the NIBs and the Common African Position through the implementation of the national implementation plans. So just to give a few examples, in the area of improved agricultural practices, we have many countries that have transformed their agriculture or their food system through improved agricultural practices. For instance, in Ethiopia, we've seen the introduction of improved seed varieties. In the area of innovative financing, these are areas in the African Common Positions, of course. We see Rwanda that have the crop intensification programs and have introduced subsidized loans to farmers. In the area of technology, of course, we all know the M-Pesa and what it has done in terms of revolutionizing food system transformation in Kenya. So these are some very concrete things that African countries are doing in the context of implementing CAADP-Malabo and the African Common Position with regard to the food system agenda. Now, to come to some of the challenges, of course, we know of climate change. I think the DG spoke about that. I won't elaborate on that, but we have seen increased changes in weather patterns that affect planting seasons. We have inadequate infrastructure, particularly with regard to rural infrastructure, and this is critically affecting the ability of farmers to access markets. Of course, there's the issue of political instability. I think we have to talk about it. And we across the continent, we are seeing how the instability is affecting production and productivity in various regions. Some of the studies in Sudan, Southern Sudan have shown that, Somalia and a few others. So these are critical things. Of course, the big issue of financing is a challenge. It's reported that we need about $60 billion yearly to be able to talk about food system transformation in the continent. So this is something that we need to look at various options, whether it's internal domestic resource mobilization or accessing global financing to be able to support African farmers and food system transformation in general. But of course, there's good news. We've seen the success story, and just looking at the way forward, we need to build on the programming that is going on. In the context of AUD and NEPAD in particular, we are working on climate-smart agriculture practices to help member states to adopt technologies and better practices on the issues of adaptation to climate change and climate change mitigation. With issues of crops, better seeds, solar power integration, consolidated farmland so that farmers can access irrigation. Investment in infrastructure will be critical. From the US-African Summit, one of the key commitments from that summit is investing in African agriculture. And through the PIDA framework of the African Union, emphasis is being put to look at not only the regional connectivities to encourage regional trade in the context of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but also to emphasize the need for rural infrastructure, which of course you will not find private sector investing, but necessitating domestic resource mobilization to be committed to this kind of infrastructure.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the next speaker, and before I do that, could I please ask the production team to put the countdown on to help us keep time on the stage, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing an overview of those areas of progress and the remaining challenges, but also some very specific points about moving forward. Well noted your point on infrastructure. Minister, I've always been impressed by Bangladesh. The work that you have done on food systems governance is very impressive, with food policies dating back to the 1980s, a range of coordination structures, a country investment plan with a food systems approach, a national pathway, and you've been both Minister of Food and Minister of Agriculture. You have both. You've been both given the roles that you have. Could you give us an example of where an area of key progress over the past couple of years, and how perhaps that has been facilitated by these governance structures that you have in place?
Well, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to speak on the important subject, transformation of agriculture. I consider it's a privilege for me. Well, you know, Bangladesh is an agricultural country. Its overall economy always dominated by agriculture. It accounts about 12% of GDP. It employs 40% of the labor forces. And it is always important to ensure food security. In transformation, you know, Bangladesh has been practicing traditional agriculture, or we call subsistence agriculture. And it was a historically food deficit country. Bangladesh suffered many famine, semi-famine situation. People suffered from hunger and starvation. But these days, if I consider since 2008, the present government took over, Bangladesh has a commitment to the people that will achieve self-sufficiency in food grain, at least in rice, and will be achieving all the MDG goal. I'm happy to tell you that Bangladesh is now self-sufficient in food grain, particularly rice. And we have achieved most of the MDG goal. Now we are very much on track on achieving SDG goal. That's to increase productivity by almost double and achieve most of the self-sufficiency in food, considering all the components. That's nutrition, affordability, and availability. Well, present government, since we are self-sufficient in grain, now our challenge, main focus is to make Bangladesh self-sufficient in nutritious food, balanced food, and safe food. Towards that goal, we are trying to transform our traditional or subsistence agriculture to commercial agriculture, modern agriculture. To achieving that goal, we have taken a number of measures. We have focused on research to have more modern technologies for production, including high-yielding varieties. Well, in high-yielding varieties, scientists are doing a good job. They're evolving new varieties, and farmers are adapting those. And government providing adequate support, funding support. We call it incentive, or you may say it subsidy. For example, we are in a process of mechanization. These days, labor cost is very high. We are giving 50 to 70% subsidy for agricultural implement. For example, if a farmer buy a combine harvester, if it costs $10,000, government will give them $5,000, and farmer has to pay only $5,000. In unfavorable area, like coastal area or hilly, where is a difficult agriculture, there we give 70%, $7,000 from the government, and $3,000 from farmers will pay. So thus we are promoting mechanization in Bangladesh. For fertilizer, also we give huge incentive. For seeds for high-yielding varieties, we also give subsidy or incentive to the farmer. So thus we are helping to transform our agriculture.
Minister.
Our goal is, we have made, just for a second, made 3-4 goal for making overall transformation of our agricultural production system. We are focusing on agro-processing, agro-industries, and giving focus on value addition to we are giving also on value chain. Again, another area we have identified that water management. That's very important. It's also expensive. We are focusing on water management and enhance the efficiency of water use. Third is agroclimatic. To address the climate change, we are going for climate smart agriculture. Fourth is, there is a wastage of vegetable, fruits, high-value crops. And it's sometimes as high as 30%. Now we are focusing on setting up multi-purpose cold storage and specialized cold storage, and also vehicle for transporting agricultural commodities.
Thank you,
so
Minister.
those are the areas we are focusing for overall transformation of our agriculture or towards the modern agriculture.
Thank you very much. You clearly have a plan. You've had some clear success in the past. You're acknowledging your challenges, and you have a very clear plan for moving forward. So thank you for sharing that with us. Minister, I know that you viewed the UN Food Systems Summit as a historic opportunity to leverage the power of food systems for the SDGs. And in your current role, as well as your prior role of Minister of State for Food and Water Security, you've really overseen huge steps in your country, building local food production sector, developing partnerships for climate innovation, reducing food losses and waste. So tell me, could you share with us a key bottleneck that you've encountered in this process of change, and share with us how you found a way through?
Sure. First of all, great being here with my colleagues, and we're very different to Bangladesh. We're not an agriculture country. We're a country that very much depends on imports. One thing we've really harnessed is the power of innovation, and we've seen great strides in this. I mean, when I started in 2017, there was just a handful of ag tech companies, but now we're well on our way. Just under 200 ag tech companies are now set up in the UAE, growing berries, vegetables, and for me, the greatest breakthrough would be to see if we could actually grow grains in closed environment ag. That would be the next big thing. But some of the bottlenecks that I face, I think it's along the lines of food sovereignty. Really how to ensure that the food producers are benefiting here, and we're talking about also the smallholder farmers. I've set up something called the Farmers Majlis. This is an Arabic word for like an official sitting room, or you can name it a council. I myself attend these. We do this on a monthly basis to really have the conversations with the farmers on the ground. We're really looking at how to make our subsidies smarter, not just about the inputs, but really looking at those who are really contributing to the GDP of the country and growing food in a commercial way. We've also looked at how to look at bringing youth into this as well. And the exciting part is when they see innovations, technologies in this space, they get really excited about it. And knowing to grow food in the cities is another thing that they're very attracted to. And actually, during COVID, many young people actually started growing their own food. And I just see a big, huge behavior change around plant-based foods, around respecting food, around portion size, around even after eating out to take that food back home again and maybe reheating it for another time. So the challenges that I find is really these smallholder farmers, but I think many countries are facing this as well. With the traditional ways that they're using, how do you upscale or upgrade these smallholder farmers? Another thing was creating market access for them. Now, we're a country that imports a lot of food, and as you can imagine, it's a very competitive market. We don't have the economy of scales as some other countries have, so when we import, the farmers feel it's so hard for them to access these markets. And so what we've done is we've created their own market, and saying what are the big entities such as the army, the police, the authority that takes care of the government hospitals. They're the ones that buy a lot of food. How can we create a policy where the government actually puts in a policy for when they procure food that they have to buy this from local producers? And in that way you create a market for them and they're not competing against the traders. And so we're actually working on this. We've put a target. We've set out 6 big entities in the UAE government. They've signed a pledge that they're going to be part of this movement or this new act or this new market that we want to create. And we have identified a list of 6 or 7 food items that we know we can grow sustainably in the UAE, because we want to take baby steps and then create that policy around it. And now with this, we're targeting by the end of the year, hopefully 50% of those foods procured by those entities to be sourced locally. So this is just an example of some of the challenges we're facing and some of the solutions we're trying to use.
Fantastic, thank you. And again, another great example of good planning and really focusing on what the problems are and finding very specific ways to find innovative solutions. Thanks for sharing that with us. Jennifer Lester-Moffat, you're a farmer, and I know you're passionate about sustainable food systems. Could you share with us an example of one good practice that you've had experience of in the United States, which you see as key to success in transforming food systems towards greater sustainability?
Yeah, thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, as a farmer and as someone who works in U.S. government, really strengthening our food system, practice that we've seen that's very important, and I've heard this from other panelists as well, is the systems approach. It is a complicated and beautiful web of our food system, but it is complicated, and so taking a systems approach, there's not just one lever that we need to pull in order to really transform our food system. It starts, of course, with farmers and ranchers, and so we've been able to invest the $5 billion that the United States Congress has given us to transform our food system and take this holistic approach, a whole of U.S. government approach, in fact, as well. So starting with farmers and ranchers and really building out their capacity to access markets, find new markets, and navigate the market and supply chain, and then moving on into processing and distribution, investing in more processing capacity, distribution capacity for crops and for regions that have not had that same access. So farmers have more opportunities to bring their product to more and better markets. And then it moves on to, of course, consumers, and that is everything from the power of procurement, which we talked about, and we talked about earlier yesterday on school meals, to hospital, farm to hospital, to everything to farmers markets and all of the different marketing opportunities that farmers can have. So the power of procurement and for consumers to be able to have access to the great food that is being produced. So a systems approach is something that has been very important that we've seen is valuable. We hear that. The other thing that's been important too is the power of listening. And so when we embarked on our process, as we received this investment of funds, we listened to stakeholders, we listened to farmers and ranchers, we listened to NGOs in the food system that have been working in this for decades. And what we heard is that in order to achieve our equity goals, our inclusion goals, to make sure small farmers, women farmers, socially disadvantaged farmers, underserved farmers have the same access that farmers like my family have had, we need to be able to really invest in trusted local advisors, trusted local partners. And so we've launched regional food business centers around the country. And the point of these regional food business centers is investing in the trusted advisors, people who farmers already go to for advice and information, invest in them, and so they can then help the producers navigate the supply chain. They can have access to more new and better markets that all of our producers have had. They also not just provide technical assistance and market access, but also micro grants so that they can take their idea from concept all the way to fruition. So I think that has been a very important thing, taking the systems approach, but also really listening, incorporating what we're hearing into our policies and programs so our programs can be more accessible for more people. And then I'll just wrap by saying, as we also listen, there are many different areas and avenues that we're listening, not just as how we develop our programs, but how we act as U.S. government. And so we have launched an equity commission at USDA to hear from producers that we haven't been traditionally hearing from in the past, so we can incorporate their voice. Again, it goes back to our very strong goals for equity and inclusion at the U.S. government.
Thank you very much for pointing out this production to consumption systems approach, but very powerful words there about how listening can help you design more effective programming and more effective projects and infrastructure. So I'd like to move on to you, Afshan Khan. The Sun movement, the Scaling Up Nutrition movement, has long been a champion of the multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder approach to improve nutrition, and you've been engaging more and more with food systems. Now, we've heard quite a lot about agriculture here and about environment. But based on the experience of the 65 Sun countries, what's the main experience of progress that you have experienced in leveraging food systems for nutrition, and what's a core challenge?
Thank you very much, Corinne, and thanks to the other panelists. I think there's 3 points I'd like to highlight. One, obviously, Sun, as you pointed out, is committed to countering malnutrition in all its forms. So we have 65 countries and 4 Indian states that are very much in the lead on this agenda. Yesterday, there was a lot of focus on hunger and malnutrition and what that has meant for people and planet. So I think we really need to be very clear. Our goal is straightforward. We want to see nutrition-focused food systems approaches applied in response to agri-food system problems. And for food systems transformation to be successful, as the DG said, a joined-up approach is critical, but one that takes into consideration the country-level factors, whether that's conflict, climate, biodiversity, in the way food is produced, distributed, and consumed. And the goal of nutrition-sensitive agriculture is really to use nutritionally rich foods and focus on that component to address malnutrition in all its forms. And as you said earlier, to achieve this means supporting producers so they have the resources to grow the right foods, equipping markets to enable them to sell nutritious foods within the range of everyone, and educating families about nutrition so they are equipped to produce, purchase, and prepare nutrition foods. For the successes, I very much want to come back to something you raised earlier, Corinne, which is about the good examples, the peer-to-peer exchanges of what can be done to show what has worked best. In Nepal, when the Prime Minister spoke, he was very clear that they've prioritized nutrition outcomes, and that's through looking at a system through the National Planning Commission that oversees multi-stakeholder efforts on nutrition and on food security together. So Nepal is leveraging lessons from the Sun approach of a multi-stakeholder engagement, similar to what the US described, collaboration and coordination through multi-sectoral platforms for nutrition. Bangladesh, we had the distinguished Prime Minister as a member of the lead group in 2015, again focusing on this multi-sectoral coordination with 22 different sectors being involved in the implementation of the plan of action. So we really see effective coordination, having the Sun focal point and the food systems convener being the same person, placed at the level centrally for planning, finance in the office of the PM, promoting the development of local and regional food systems, diversified diets, integrating climate change adaptation and mitigation through climate-smart agriculture and resilient farming practices, and innovative technologies to retain the nutrient content, and then partnering with the Sun Business Network and civil society that include youth to work hand in hand to promote ethical and healthy business practices. And we see this as key. But if I had to name one factor that increases the challenges and makes it more difficult to implement good practices, I would say that's resources. Nearly all Sun countries identified financing as a major obstacle. Many countries face constraints in securing adequate funding, and there's a direct correlation, as highlighted yesterday, between debt repayments and government's ability to fund social safety nets for nutritional goals. So for me, proper nutrition can't be seen just as a goal that would be nice to achieve. Without the affordability and availability of healthy food, the world's population is less productive, more prone to disease, and the chances of conflict over the resources needed for food production are significantly enhanced. So here, I think a stronger focus on coordination, inclusion of key stakeholders is a way to prioritize nutrition in both food production and distribution. And I'm delighted to hear the other panelists' experience on what's been done to date. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much for painting for us a picture of the infrastructure that you need of people and the way that people need to be pulled together in order to craft the solutions that we need, as well as picking up on the points that were made by all of the other panelists about the need to access to nutritious foods and to find markets for those foods and really construct those markets. So thank you very much for the panel. I would like to ask you to stay on the stage as we move over to you on the floor. We have 16 interventions pre-registered from the floor. We had a high demand, and it's wonderful that was the case. We're looking forward to learning from you, following from the panelists, of your areas of progress and your areas of challenge. You have 2.5 minutes for your interventions, and I would ask you kindly to stick to the 2.5 minutes, which should be displayed in a screen in front of you. I would now like to invite the first intervention from the floor from Switzerland, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Our pathway for food systems transformation is based on a Switzerland Sustainable Development Strategy 2030. The strategy adopts a holistic approach, and that purposes for measurable targets of food system transformation ranging from production to consumption. Along similar lines, over the past 2 years, we started to move towards the development of a new agricultural policy. Concretely, our Federal Council, the executive branch of our national government, released a report on the future orientation of Switzerland's agriculture policy beyond 2030. The report adopts a food system approach. In that, it proposes measures along the entire value chain and beyond, such as anticipating climate change impacts, reducing nutrition losses and risk from plant protection products, striving for a fair distribution of added value, addressing true costs of food, and simplifying the choice of sustainable products for consumers. Our Federal Parliament welcomed this report and mandated the Federal Council to use it as the starting point for the elaboration of a dispatch for the new agricultural policy law by 2027. Of course, many challenges remain, including the need to put a halt to biodiversity loss, reduce pollution and mitigate and adapt to climate change, reduce the climate impact of livestock while safeguarding the strong economic value-adding sector in Switzerland, a grassland, offer perspectives and alternatives to farmers who will need to change what they have been doing in the past, facilitate consumer behavior change, a particular challenge in a liberal society like Switzerland, where the consumer says what he wants to eat and it's not the government or a law, address the contribution of trade to the sustainable development of the food and agricultural sector. In addition, power imbalances and the continuing predominance of silo thinking are among the key bottlenecks that disrupt progress in all of these areas. These challenges can only be effectively addressed through more holistic policies, which in turn requires the adoption of cross-ministerial and multi-stakeholder dialogues and collaborations like the Citizens' Assembly on the Future of Food that we supported last year to hear the voice of the Swiss population. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed for raising these critical points around a systems approach and holistic approaches to governance, and for sharing the example of what you've done in Switzerland. Thank you. I would like to now turn to Nigeria. Could I ask if the Nigerian delegate is in the room, please? Okay. If the Nigerian delegate is not in the room, I would like now to turn to Brazil.
Buenos días a todas y a todos. Me llamo Nécio Fernandes, secretario de Atención Primaria del Ministerio de Salud Pública de Brasil. Los sistemas de salud en todo el mundo han sido desafiados por la pandemia de la COVID-19. Resistimos con camas hospitalarias y aislamiento social, pero vencimos la pandemia con vacunas y apostándole a la ciencia. Las debilidades de las cadenas productivas y del comercio internacional ya no garantizaban acceso a alimentos adecuados y para todos en el periodo prepandémico. La COVID-19 llevó a cada uno por su cuenta y pocos por todos. Observen lo que ocurrió con las vacunas y los ventiladores pulmonares en el mundo. Y el hambre ha vuelto con fuerza en Brasil y en el mundo. Nosotros del Sistema Único de Salud reconocemos que el dolor de estómago por hambre no se trata con pantoprazol, sino con comida. Reconocemos las múltiples cargas de enfermedades asociadas a la mala nutrición. El presidente Lula, en su última visita a Europa, dejó claro que la explotación de los países ricos sobre los países pobres debe cesar. Necesitamos normas que permitan el acceso a tecnologías, financiación para todos los que quieren producir, que permitan la soberanía alimentaria de los pueblos, valoración y reconocimiento de los arreglos productivos y sociales locales. Creemos que nuestros pueblos, hechos de maíz, de yuca, de arroz y frijol, que son lo que comen, tienen contribuciones extraordinarias a la cultura y a los caminos para la vida saludable y a la seguridad alimentaria del mundo. Al final del gobierno Lula, queremos que en Brasil no existan niños sin escuela y brasileños que duerman sin saber qué comerán al día siguiente. Ya hemos sacado a Brasil del mapa del hambre. Superaremos todas las expresiones de negacionismo. El hambre ha vuelto, lo reconocemos y vamos a enfrentarlos. Estamos sumando esfuerzos de los diferentes ministerios para sacar a Brasil nuevamente del mapa del hambre para 2030. Nuestro plan estratégico llamado Brasil sin hambre será lanzado por el presidente Lula en las próximas semanas. El plan ha sido construido a partir de los siguientes supuestos: interdependencia de los derechos humanos, pues necesitamos garantizar todos los derechos relacionados a la protección social para conseguir materializar el derecho a la alimentación adecuada. Lucha contra el hambre con alimentos adecuados y saludables, a través de políticas y programas que abarquen todo el sistema alimentario para que sea posible a la población poner en práctica las recomendaciones de nuestra guía alimentaria, construida por el Ministerio de Salud, buscando promover la salud, el uso sostenible del medio ambiente y la soberanía alimentaria para nuestro pueblo. O sea, haciendo de los alimentos in natura y mínimamente procesados la base de las comidas de los brasileños, especialmente aquellos producidos por la agricultura familiar, y protegiendo a la población del acceso y consumo de los alimentos ultraprocesados. y aún el supuesto de la participación social.
Could I ask you to wrap up, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for sharing the fact that Brazil is facing the challenges that it has and setting clear goals out for the future, focusing on hunger but also the quality of that food. Thank you very much. Also picking up on this point of bringing the ministries together, bringing the right people together needed to solve the problems. Thank you. I would like to now turn to Norway.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to participate on this dialogue meeting on such an important topic. In my intervention, I wish to make three main points that we have experienced in Norway. Firstly, a key achievement achieving sustainable food systems is close cooperation with all food system actors. Farmers and fisherfolk's participation and ownership to new solutions is vital in order to implement solutions that are both socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable. An example is a climate agreement for agriculture between the Norwegian government and farmers' organizations. Through this agreement, the farming community has committed to reductions in climate emissions from the agriculture sector. I also want to mention the annual agreement on economic measures for the reindeer husbandry industry with the Sami reindeer herders organizations, which has been of great importance to address the challenges more efficiently. Secondly, a key to food system transformation is taking a cross-sectoral approach. Increased investments in circular bioeconomy using renewable biological resources from land and sea, reduce food loss and waste, and help people eat in accordance with the dietary recommendations are important areas for Norway. In particular, sustainable feed production has been a main priority, taking a systematic approach and looking at bioresources both for livestock and aquaculture. A hub aimed at streamlining measures for reducing climate footprint in the value chain and on farm level has been established in Norway as well. Thirdly, a key to sustainable food system transformation is implementing solutions adapted to local needs. In Norway, only 3% is arable land, making this a valuable resource we need to protect. It is a goal to maintain agricultural production throughout the country. Family farming is the backbone of agriculture in Norway. In this context, we emphasize the need to build strong and inclusive institutions in the agricultural sector in order to implement sustainable solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Norway, for sharing with us some of the key issues around the environmental aspects that are so critically important, and for raising ways that you are addressing it. Thank you very much. I would now like to turn to Uzbekistan. Can I ask if the delegate from Uzbekistan is in the room, please? I would now like to turn to Palestine. Could I check that the delegate from Palestine is in the room? I'd now like to see if the delegate from Ecuador is in the room. Ecuador, please.
Muy amable, gracias. Buenos días con todos. Un afectuoso saludo desde la República del Ecuador. Me gustaría centrar mi intervención en la construcción de nuestra hoja de ruta, cuáles han sido nuestros éxitos, cuáles hemos identificado como desafíos y, por supuesto, pues qué transformaciones esperamos conseguir. Es importante mencionarles que el Ecuador ha venido construyendo nuestra hoja de ruta. Hemos procurado que esta hoja de ruta sea inclusiva, de forma tal que hemos convocado a 2 grandes diálogos nacionales donde participaron más de 1.500 personas. Por supuesto, estuvo liderado por el Ministerio de Agricultura, sin embargo, contamos con la colaboración de distintas carteras de Estado, también contamos con la participación de la academia y, por supuesto, lo más importante, con más de 150 asociaciones de productores. Era importante que ellos formen parte en la construcción de nuestra hoja de ruta. También invitamos a muchos gobiernos locales para poder articular nuestras políticas públicas con ellos. Como asunto importante a relevar, quisiéramos detallar que hemos querido empoderar a la mujer rural. ¿Y cómo hemos querido empoderarla? Visibilizándola. Encontramos pues que en el Ecuador la agricultura es una agricultura básicamente familiar y campesina. Más del 60% de las unidades productivas agropecuarias son de agricultura familiar y campesina y más del 50% de estas unidades están lideradas por mujeres. Es importante visibilizar a la mujer, es importante que tenga autonomía financiera. En ese sentido hemos creado un crédito específico para las mujeres que se llama Super Mujer Rural, que es bastante innovador porque es el único crédito en el Ecuador que no necesita la firma del cónyuge. Como desafíos, básicamente queríamos plantear en el foro pues, la necesidad de impulsar la asociatividad de forma tal que podamos mejorar la comercialización de nuestros productos. Creemos que si nuestros agricultores, que son muy pequeños, con parcelas muy pequeñas, se unen y creamos un cooperativismo, ellos pueden no solamente comprar los insumos que necesitan para poder producir, sino poder salir a la venta de una mejor forma y que reciban un precio justo. Un desafío importante también, en honor al tiempo, quisiera igual ponerlo sobre el panel, es nuestra preocupación sobre el envejecimiento en la población del campo. Creo que es algo que nos convoca a todos los presentes a tratar, a no seguir dilatando este tema. La población del campo está envejeciendo cada vez más y es importante que los países tomemos pasos adecuados para poder mitigar un eventual daño en los sistemas alimentarios. Como transformación esperada, creemos que mediante un proceso de un censo que estamos haciendo ahora en el Ecuador, pues vamos a poder tener una información estadística mucho más contundente para poder tomar las mejores decisiones a nivel de políticas públicas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much indeed, Ecuador, for highlighting this critical issue of women in food systems and for sharing with us a very specific example of a program that you have put into place to address this issue. Thank you very much. So I'd like to now turn to Kazakhstan. Could I ask the delegate of Kazakhstan, please? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, let me extend greetings to you on behalf of the Republic of Kazakhstan and thank you for the opportunity to share our country's position on measures to enhance the food system resilience amid multiple challenges. As you know, Kazakhstan ranks 9th in the world by territory, of which 74% is suitable for agricultural production. Currently, only about half of the agricultural land is involved in economic turnover. Meanwhile, Kazakhstan is a country affected by water scarcity, mainly in the southern regions. Agriculture accounts for about 5% of Kazakhstan GDP and 15% of total employment. We are one of the world's top 25 food exporters to Central Asia, Afghanistan, Iran, Russian Federation, and China. Overall, food availability in Kazakhstan has improved significantly over the last 20 years and has reached 3,100 kcal per day. The prevalence of malnutrition is estimated to be below 2.5%, which is 2 times lower than FAO's threshold. However, the escalating impact of climate change is a significant risk factor in Kazakhstan. The average annual air temperature increase over the territory of Kazakhstan for 1976-2020 amounted to 0.32 degrees Celsius every 10 years. If such rates persist by 2085, all northern regions of Kazakhstan might be in the semi-arid zone and the arid zone will expand. Water scarcity due to global warming may cause pasture degradation, affecting to cultivation of many crops, including wheat, one of the country's major export commodities. Over the past 5 years, 2 severe droughts have been recorded in Kazakhstan in 2019 and 2021. According to national statistics, the area of irrigated farmland has increased by 14% over 5 years. Climate change is also expected to bring about changes in land use patterns and transitions to alternative and drought-tolerant crops. Given the above, the government of Kazakhstan is undertaking a range of measures to mitigate the impact of global warming process on the food system and ensure food security. First, this year, the strategy for achieving carbon neutrality to 2060 was approved, which provides for enhancing sustainable agricultural practice, sustainable livestock management practices, including sustainable use, development and conservation of livestock genetic resources, technology solutions to reduce methane emissions from livestock, and sustainable pasture management will be promoted. Second, the government has approved the concept for sector development until 2030 and the national project for agribusiness development until 2025. Both strategic documents have been developed with FAO's technical support. In addition, the plan to ensure food security for 2002-2004 was approved. These documents focus on investments in food system development aimed at boosting production of certain food items with a view to reducing imports as well as at curbing food prices.
Thank you, Kazakhstan, for raising these important points. If I could just ask you to end your statement. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Kazakhstan. You have raised in stark reality of climate change and how the intense impacts that this is having, the real impacts this is having on your country and so many of our countries. And congratulations for sharing with us the steps that you are taking to address it. Thank you. I would now like to turn to Lebanon.
Yes, hello, Excellencies. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to have an intervention. We would like to ask kindly, if possible, to delay the intervention about one speaker because our minister is coming. So he has a bilateral and unfortunately there was some delay. So if you can kindly consider our request. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Could I turn to Kyrgyzstan, please?
Our minister just arrived. Thank you.
Can I? Is Kyrgyzstan here in the room? Yes, you are. I will go to Kyrgyzstan and then go back to Lebanon, please.
Okay, thank you.
Уважаемые гости, гендиректор Цун Дуйнюй, уважаемые участники и коллеги, позвольте мне приветствовать вас и поблагодарить организаторов мероприятия правительства Италии в сотрудничестве с базирующими в Риме агентствами ООН. Спустя 2 года после предварительного саммита, проведенного здесь, в Риме, я очень рад принять участие в проведении итогов трансформации продовольственных систем, что позволяет осмыслить достигнутый прогресс и проанализировать оставшиеся проблемы. 2 года назад Кыргызская республика с удовольствием воспользовалась возможностью внести свой вклад в глобальный диалог о необходимости разработки комплексной и последовательной политики трансформации продовольственных систем. Неотложная потребность в защите ледников Тянь-Шаня, которые находятся в Кыргызской республике, была отмечена как главный приоритет в усилиях страны по достижению зеленого экономического роста и повышению благосостояния населения. Географические особенности Кыргызской республики, не имеющие выход к морю, делают ее одной из наиболее уязвимых стран Центральной Азии. А зависимость от импорта ряда социально значимых продовольственных товаров и мировой кризис растущей стоимости жизни после пандемии еще раз подтвердили необходимость разработки эффективных решений для продовольственных систем на местном уровне. Инвестиции в продовольственные системы за счет глубоких изменений в производстве, хранении, потреблении и утилизации продовольствия могут оказать стимулирующее воздействие на достижение целей устойчивого развития. Прежде всего, первой цели – ликвидация нищеты, и второй цели – ликвидация голода. Когда в 2021 году Кыргызская республика приняла участие в саммите продовольственных систем, был подготовлен доклад, и на его основе разработана новая программа продовольственной безопасности и питания до 2027 года. Целью программы является обеспечение устойчивого наличия и доступности недорогого, достаточного, безопасного и питательного продовольствия для населения. С целью повышения эффективности сельского хозяйства Кыргызской Республики подготовлен также проект концепции. Концепция опирается на следующие основные приоритеты. Это продовольственная безопасность, органическое земледелие, адаптация к изменению климата, развитие сельскохозяйственных кластеров, цифровизация сельскохозяйственного производства, новые технологии и освоение новых экспортных рынков. Ухудшение условий ведения сельского хозяйства, вызванное изменением климата, это проблема сегодняшнего дня, а не отдаленного будущего. В завершение своего выступления я хотел бы еще раз подчеркнуть, что сохранение благосостояния планеты и благополучия людей – это самое главное. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you very much for ending with that critically important point of the well-being of the planet and of people, and for sharing with us the fact that you are clearly developing plans and strategies to address these issues in your country. I would now like to return to Lebanon for your intervention, please.
تحياتي لكم جميعا. قبل أن أبدأ بكلمتي والنص أود أن أعتذر على الدقائق التي انتظرتم بها، لكن مفترض أن تكون المداخلة على 11، فعذرا لكم، ولبنان بيستاهل ننتظروا أكثر من 5 دقائق. تحية لكم من لبنان، هذا البلد الصغير بجغرافيته، الكبير بدوره وتنوعه ورسالته التعددية في منطقة الشرق الأوسط. يشرفني أن نمثل بلدي هنا في هذا اللقاء برعاية كريمة من أمين عام الأمم المتحدة في قمة بالغة الأهمية في التوقيت والدلالات والنقاط الإشكالية التي سنناقشها على مختلف الصعد. انطلاقا من العنوان الأبرز والأشمل، عنيت بذلك كيفية التلاقي على وضع أسس وقواعد جديدة لتحول النظم الغذائية الحالية إلى نظم غذائية مستدامة وعادلة وصحية. لن نناقش يا سادة إشكالية العدالة الدولية والالتزام الأخلاقي تجاه الإنسانية جمعاء، وما هو دورنا كدول في خلق كيان قانوني يحمي هذه الإنسانية بالنظرية والتطبيق. ولن ندخل في نقاش عن كيفية الخروج من كل الأزمات الدولية وتعقيدات العلاقات الدولية، بل كل ما نريد هو الإجابة على سؤال واحد مركزي يهمنا جميعا ويؤرق خاطر حكوماتنا، والسؤال: هل بإمكاننا تحقيق الأمن الغذائي وسلامة الغذاء وتغير النظم الغذائية؟ وما هي الآليات الواجب اتباعها؟ وهل نجحنا أو سننجح في توفير هذا الأمر لكل دولة على حدة، أم علينا وضع استراتيجية ترعاها الأمم المتحدة من شأنها أن تبلور العمل المشترك الدولي أو الإقليمي أو الثنائي؟ إن تأمين الغذاء وتوفره وسلامته بات أمرا صعبا، خصوصا مع تزايد الفجوات داخل المجتمع الواحد وداخل الدولة الواحدة، فجوات تكبر نتيجة لعوامل عدة تبدأ باللا استقرار الأمني والترهل الاقتصادي والتعثر التنموي، وصولا إلى الانهيارات الاجتماعية. يرافق ذلك تغير مناخي يتسارع باتجاه سلبي رغم كل الجهود الأممية. ولذلك تم اعتماد نهج النظم الغذائية على نطاق أوسع لتحديد وتحليل وتقييم تأثير ردود فعل ورؤية واقتراحات في مختلف الجهات الفاعلة للمساعدة في تعزيز الأمن الغذائي العالمي. إن قمة النظم الغذائية توفر لنا فرصة غير مسبوقة لتحديد مستقبل نظمنا الغذائية، إذ أن كل من لديه مصلحة في النظم الغذائية مدعو إلى عقد حوار مستقل يسترشد به في عمليات القمة بشكل مباشر، وتعمل الحوارات المستقلة الناشئة والمنظمة محلياً والقابلة للتكيف بشكل كامل مع سياقات مختلفة على حشد التمويل. وقبل أن أنهي كلمتي لا بد لي أن أضعكم بصورة ولو مصغرة عن ما يحدث في وطن لبنان. نحن يا سادة أيها السيدات والسادة نستضيف ما لا يقل عن 2,000,000 نازح ضيف سوري على مساحة 10,452 كيلومترا مربعا، وعدد سكان وطني لبنان لا يتجاوز 4.5 ملايين. نستضيفهم منذ أكثر من 11 عاما رغم انتهاء الحرب السورية. هذا الأمر يرخي بثقله على البنية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية والبيئية والصحية والتعليمية والسياسية والديموغرافية اللبنانية، وعليه نحن نؤكد أننا مع العودة الآمنة لهؤلاء الإخوة الذين أجبرتهم الحرب بكل إرهاصاتها على ترك بلدهم، وها هي تضع أوزارها في مساحات كبيرة من سوريا، ومطلوب عودتهم الآمنة والإنسانية بالتنسيق طبعا مع الحكومة السورية ورعاية مباركة من الأمم المتحدة. كما أود أن أؤكد على موقف لبنان المستهجن والقلق من المواقف الأخيرة التي اتخذت في الاتحاد الأوروبي فيما خص النازحين السوريين، لما لهذا الأمر من تأثير خطر ومباشر على أمننا الوطني وتعايشنا السلمي وديموغرافية هذا البلد الذي قال فيه يوما قداسة البابا يوحنا بولس الثاني إن لبنان بلد الرسالة. حضرة الأمين العام أيها السيدات والسادة، نحن نعيش أزمة صعبة ومركبة بلا شك، ويرزح أكثر من نصف سكان لبنان تحت خط الفقر وفق تقارير أممية خرجت من هنا. أزمة تحتاج التحرك اليوم قبل الغد كي لا يدخل بلدنا في مجهول اقتصادي اجتماعي وأمني.
Minister, if I could ask you to wrap up now, please.
نعم. أيها السيدات والسادة، واسمحي لي كمان دقيقة لو سمحت لي، لأننا نتحدث عن أزمة إنسانية كبرى، ونتحدث عن 2,500,000 لاجئ ونازح سوري، ونتحدث عن نصف سكان لبنان تحت خط الفقر. نحن نعمل في القطاع الزراعي على استدامة هذا القطاع والتأسيس مع شركاء داخليين وخارجيين. شريكنا الأول منظمة الفاو، بالإضافة إلى المنظمات التابعة للأمم المتحدة والمنظمات التابعة لجامعة الدول العربية، وعلى رأسها المنظمة العربية للتنمية الزراعية ومنظمة أكساد. إنني أدعو كل العالم من هنا من روما، ونحن على مسافة حب وعشق مع حاضرة الفاتيكان، أن تتأطر الجهود لمساعدتنا، وندعو لشراكة وثقة عنوانها الأمن والنظم الغذائية المستدامين. عشتم وعاشت الأمم المتحدة، عاشت منظمة الأغذية والزراعة الفاو، عاش وطني وطن الرسالة والدور. شكرا.
Thank you very much, Minister. You've raised some serious challenges that I think we're all aware of in this room, and you've said that we mustn't be naive to the extent and depth of the challenges that we face. But you also called us to come together and to bring all stakeholders together to find these solutions. Thank you. I would now like to turn to Uzbekistan.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, Director General of FAO, Dr. Kudunyu. First of all, I would like to thank His Excellency, United Nations Secretary General, for the invitation. I also thank the government of Italy for hosting us in the historic city of Rome. To transform our food system, we faced significant challenges with knowledge deficit. Therefore, we established an agriculture knowledge and innovation system, otherwise known as AKIS. So, this new system, we promoted research, innovation, education, and advisory services with farmers and agribusiness to provide them valuable skills and services. We have established 13 regional agriculture knowledge hubs and advisory centers in all districts of the country. Another important reform we have launched in the Land to Know program for smallholders. We have created an opportunity for smallholders, particularly for youth and women, to access for 200,000 hectares of land for 200,000 of families from the rural communities. Moreover, another milestone achieved in food systems transformation in the launch of free school meal program in Uzbekistan. Now our government is committed to invest over 200 million for this program. However, despite significant progress made in these areas of food systems, climate change still maintains a major issue. Currently, we are developing a 3-year agri-food climate change adaptation and mitigation program. Last but not least, we are organizing an international conference of food security in September 7 to 8 this year in the historic city of Samarkand. Taking this opportunity, I invite you to Uzbekistan for this important event. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Uzbekistan, for sharing some of the practical solutions that you're taking and for offering that invitation to us today. I'd now like to turn to Libya.
صباح الخير لكل المتحدثين وأيضا للأورجنايزر وللسادة والسيدات رؤساء الوفود وأعضاء الوفود. عندما نتكلم على ليبيا نعرف جيدا أنها مرت بعدة تحديات كبيرة جدا في مجالات عدة، ولكن أنا أنطلق كخبير وكوزير سابق من قول أحد الأصدقاء الأفارقة لي أن tough times bring opportunities. انتهجنا في ليبيا خطة لقطاع الزراعة لتطوير قطاع الزراعة مع منظمة الفاو وأيضا مع برنامج الأغذية العالمي. هذه الخطط تكون من تكوين استراتيجية للأمن الغذائي والنظم الغذائية، وتعمل الآن على الأرض وتعمل على محددات مهمة جدا، وهي إعادة تأهيل القطاع الزراعي في الزراعات الأسرية والمزارع الصغيرة. هذا أولا. ثانيا تطوير الإنتاج وزيادته بجودة عالية تنافسية. وأنا أريد أن أسجل هنا أن ليبيا الآن بدأت تصدر في المواد الغذائية المصنعة لأفريقيا من القطاع الخاص. نحن بدأنا في استراتيجية الأمن الغذائي التي يشرف عليها في دفع بالشباب من الجنسين وأيضا بالقطاع الخاص للمضي قدما في إنتاج وافر وعرض إنتاج منافس للتصدير وللاستهلاك المحلي. ثانيا انتهجنا سياسة الإبداع والابتكار وأيضا تطوير التقنيات العالية جدا مع بعض المؤسسات الدولية. وأريد أن أسجل هنا أن البنك الأفريقي للتنمية أحد الانستيتيوشنز اللي ساعدت في الدفع بهذه الاستراتيجية من خلال المنظمات الدولية. الناحية الأخرى أن العمل على الأرض بدأ في المزارع في الجنوب الليبي بخلق مواطن عمل وخلق فرص عمل عوضا عن الاتجاه إلى أي مشاكل اجتماعية ومشاكل أخرى قد تؤثر على استقرار الدولة. إذا نحن معنيين بالاستقرار من خلال خلق فرص العمل وخلق مواطن للشباب من الجنسين وللعائلات الصغيرة. فبرنامج الغذاء العالمي معنا أنهى تطوير 5000 مزرعة في الجنوب الليبي. هذه المزارع الآن أصبحت تعمل بالطاقة الشمسية في إدارة المياه إدارة جيدة، وأيضا بدأت في العمل بقواعد بيانات ممتازة جدا عن كل مزرعة، وبدأ في توجيه الدعم التقني لهذه المزارع. إذا نحن في اتجاه توسع كبير جدا على الأرض مع كل هذه المؤسسات حتى نستطيع أن نعمل إنتاج وافر وأيضا إنتاج جيد.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Libya. You've shared with us some very...
I want to add just one point, if you don't mind. Just in the investment area, Libya opened all public projects to be to the investors internationally and locally for grain, for many crops, many commodities, and also for the industry. We are now engaging all stakeholders to come in this formula of investment, and we are hoping that we will come to something much better than we've been before. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing with us as well that international cooperation has been important in your efforts at rehabilitation. I'd now like to turn to Eswatini, please.
Thank you, Director. No, I'm this side. Thank you, Director, Excellencies and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The food systems issues have always been a challenge for the development agenda for our countries. This is testament to the Global Sustainable Development Goals setting. And in the case of Africa, there is the Comprehensive Agriculture Development Program, which was adopted by heads of state through the 2003 Maputo Declaration and the 2014 Malabo Declaration. Both these initiatives are aimed at achieving zero hunger and halving poverty. Our interventions towards attaining these goals have been given further impetus by the food systems approach, which has been adopted by our countries to accelerate our inclusive and sustainable interventions for the last decade towards 2030. In the case of the Kingdom of Eswatini, water and irrigation development have been able to provide the major traction of transforming livelihoods for our people. Under this program, we have developed more than 14,000 hectares with irrigation infrastructure, thus improving productivity and reduce dependence on rainfall for agriculture production. 14,000 smallholder farming households have benefited from this initiative through linkages to processing industries and export markets. The lesson learned from this intervention is that infrastructure investments on land and committed markets help unlock and accelerate investments for smallholders. However, challenges remain in increasing productivity, inclusivity, and sustainability of our food systems. For instance, yields are still very low in our staple foods. Productivity in diversified and nutrition density foods are still very low. Poverty rates among our rural populations are still high at 58.9%, hence the need to improve our planning approaches to attain food security and prosperity. It is in this vein that government of the Kingdom of Eswatini is vigorously pursuing the implementation of our food systems pathways. The first one being the establishment of the Agriculture Development Fund, which was approved by Parliament in December 2022. The aim of this fund is to reprocess public financing for the agriculture sector through providing de-risking financing instruments and incentives for investment in the different nodes of the value chains, being processing, marketing, and product research. The government is actively engaging partners to capitalize the fund while also mobilizing domestic resources for same. The other important pathway is the establishment of agriculture industry associations to improve both horizontal and vertical coordination in our value chains. In this regard, 2 agriculture industry associations have been facilitated and registered. Going forward, there's need for technical support to improve effectiveness of these associations in participating in commercial value chains and informing agriculture policy. Over and above this, government has drafted a national agriculture investment plan, which is informed by the food systems pathways that we have committed to.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing with us this importance. Forgive me for cutting you off there, but we really must move on. This point about infrastructure coming out very strongly, and this point about associations also coming out of various of the interventions. I will now ask for 2 final interventions, and I will ask you to be brief before we will welcome the second panel onto the stage. Those interventions, if you're in the room, will be from China and the European Commission. Could I ask if the delegate from China is in the room, please? And if I could really strongly ask you to keep you to time, because we need to be wrapping up this stage. Thank you.
谢谢各位阁下、女士们、先生们，大家上午好。吃饭问题始终是天下第1号问题，也是国际社会长期以来面临的挑战。应对粮食安全，需要各国携起手来，共同努力。中国是拥有14亿人口的大国，长期以来，中国政府始终坚持把确保粮食安全作为头等大事，综合施策。粮食产量连续8年保持在6.5亿吨以上。中国依靠自身努力，解决了世界20%的人口吃饭问题，为保障全球粮食安全与和平稳定做出了重要贡献。自2021年9月联合国粮农系统峰会召开以来，中方扎实高效推进粮食转型，取得显著成效。一是完善法律法规，奠定生产发展制定制度基础，聚焦耕地保护、农业基础设施、粮食生产、绿色发展、乡村振兴等，出台了一系列政策法规，有效保障了农民种粮收益，鼓励新型经济主体开展能力建设，并促进增收，巩固了粮食安全基础。二是扩大融资创新，提供农业农村内生动力，在预算、信贷等方面对农业加大倾斜，推动粮食系统数字化转型，支持智慧农业发展，支持粮食体系科技创新，推动产学研用深度融合。三是深化国际合作，营造互利互惠的国际环境。中国与 FAO、依法 WFP、联合国可持续发展基金中心等国际机构在保证粮食安全、粮食减损、推动农业可持续发展方面构建了长期伙伴关系。通过南南合作及3方合作等项目，以发展中国家共同为可持续发展目标做出努力。我们期待此次大会能够搭建起全球粮食体系转型知识共享平台，对各国重点研发项目、最新技术成果、良好实践案例等进行交流互动，促进国际交流合作，共同推动全球粮食体系转型可持续转型，紧紧围绕实现2030年议程集体发力。谢谢 ，Thank you， Klaus
Miller。Thank you very much indeed for making this important point about knowledge exchange, and that's what we're doing here now. So thank you very much to China. If I could now turn to the European Commission for your brief intervention.
So good morning, everybody, and thank you very much. We're very grateful to have time to speak this morning. Just as a reminder, the European Union serves as a regional framework for its 27 member states, and we have a blueprint for changing our agri-food system to make it more sustainable, which is called the Farm to Fork Strategy. But I would like this morning just to draw attention to 2 points in our experience in implementing that strategy. The first of those goes to the importance of collective action. Several of the speakers this morning have already talked about that, but I want to focus in particular on the role of industry, what we might call the middle part of the chain. And there we've developed a code of conduct on responsible food business and marketing practices that was done with industry and of course with civil society as well. It has 7 aspirational objectives which covers the food system, areas like healthy and sustainable diets, circular economy, carbon neutral food chain, and private companies and associations, and we now have around 200 of those that have signed up, and they make commitments in areas that they want to deliver on in the code. And of course we have a system, a governance system for exchanging best practices and reporting on progress. Why is this important? Because I think it's another example of how we can break silos, and I think it can be used at either a regional or international level. The second point is about an international regulatory environment which is conducive to the change and transformation that we want to see. Plenty of talk yesterday and again today about the need to make sure that the role of food systems is embodied in the work of the COPs. So climate change, but also biodiversity is important, of course. And I think yesterday the minister from the UAE set out what we hope will be a very ambitious program now in terms of COP28. But beyond that, there's also the role of international trade. So trade has a prominent role for food security, but it's also very important that that trade promotes sustainable practices. So we would like to encourage discussions in the context, for example, of the WTO, to make sure that the regulatory rules are really brought also up to speed with the sustainability challenge. So we would like to see really an ambitious implementation of the declaration that was made at the 12th Ministerial Conference. And I would like to underline just how important these international standards are as a complementary element, which can either encourage or they can discourage and block sustainability. So Codex Alimentarius, of course, we're in the home of Codex Alimentarius here. Those standards are recognized in the WTO, and we think that the ongoing reflections on the future of Codex are really an important opportunity to try and address the challenges in that framework. So in this building, I hope that when the colleagues meet in a few months' time, they will not just pay lip service to what we've been talking about, but they will actually implement it in the work of the Codex. So to conclude, 2 messages. All actors, if we want to make the transformative change. And secondly, we need sustainable food systems, but we also need sustainable trade systems and sustainable international rules. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the European Commission, and I would like to stand up and thank our panel and all of you for your interventions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and to all of you. As I said, this is a group discussion here from the floor as well as from the panel. So thank you to our panel. I would now like to invite our second panel to come up onto the stage. As you do, if I could pick up in a few of the key points that we have just heard. First of all, let's be clear of the crises ahead. The points about refugees, about migration, about climate change. These are very, very real, very, very difficult issues and challenges which we all face. But what became very clear from intervention after intervention is this importance of building associations, of building cooperative governance, and of bringing the different stakeholders together. Likewise, the importance of investing in infrastructure, the importance of legal frameworks, and the importance of bringing the right people together. And what struck me most of all is just how many practical solutions you are putting into place to these challenges that you face. So thank you for sharing that, and there'll be an opportunity again to hear from you after this next panel. So I would like to invite I would like to introduce our distinguished guests for this next panel. His Excellency Agama Amenti, the Minister of Agriculture of Ethiopia. Her Excellency Laura Suazo, Secretary of Agriculture and Livestock of Honduras. Mr. Brendan Gleeson, the Secretary General of the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine of Ireland. Mr. John Denton, the the Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce, the voice of world business. And Ms. Agnes Karabo, the Executive Director of the Food Rights Alliance in Uganda. And Mr. Juan David Caro Alvarez, a youth advocate from Peru and a zoo technician working with smallholder farmers to advance agroecological approaches in the livestock sector. Welcome, thank you so much for joining us. There has been a rich discussion already on which to build. And if I could ask if the audience could hear well these questions. Minister, I'll start with you. Ethiopia, I remember well, was an enthusiastic participant of the UN Food Systems Summit. And you really invested, I remember, in your national pathway and brought so many people together in developing that pathway. And I wanted to quote from the vision that you set in that pathway, a holistic transformation of Ethiopia's food systems from production to consumption that promotes enhanced food safety, nutrition and diets, improved livelihoods, greater land preservation and restoration, and greater resilience to shocks and stress, uniting around a common goal of healthy and sustainable diets for all. Can you share for us a next step that Ethiopia will be taking towards this goal?
Thank you, moderator, for precisely describing the ambition of Ethiopia. For Ethiopia, a holistic and accelerated transformation of our food systems is an existential matter. It's not really a matter of choice. Ethiopia is the second populous country in Africa, and the population is still growing. So to meet the numerous needs of the various useful population, and of course the population pressure on the environment, urban and rural services, employment, and the demand for decent living standard will continue to mount. As equally, the demand for healthy and nutrition-dense food is already very steep. Therefore, a number of critical steps are evident. As you mentioned already, Ethiopia has described holistically how to approach our food systems pathway, and we have established 15 an interministerial steering committee with 15 ministers. This is the second biggest platform next to the cabinet, and this is chaired by the Minister of Agriculture and Minister of Health to, of course, bring in the nutrition aspect as well. And we have already established a secretariat that can coordinate and harmonize implementation plan. So we are well aware that fragmentation of efforts and duplication of efforts will not be there. We are actually cascading this to the local level, and of course we have a development partners platform where we can coordinate and synergize available fundings towards the implementation of the food system. And now we are finalizing our country diagnostics, where we are aligning our national programs, projects, and initiatives towards the identified game-changing solutions we have identified. At the end of these diagnostics, actually, we identify areas with gaps of intervention and financing, which really we take it to our development partners for financial support. As you already heard from our Prime Minister yesterday, he really indicated that special funding and financing platform for agriculture is really very, very important. And for us, of course, in Ethiopia, we are already doing activities on the ground which can be taken as a best practices. Particularly, our agriculture is dominated by smallholder farmers. So to commercialize these smallholder farmers and give them access to technologies and inputs, we have really doing a commercialization cluster, aggregating of the farmers. So far, we have aggregated around 9 million farmers around this concept on 6.1 million hectares of land. And this is only 45% of the total area we have. So we want to scale up this type of activities more. And when it comes to mechanization, Ethiopia is just starting mechanization, and only 20% of our cultivable land is now under mechanization. So the government has already removed tariffs and taxes on mechanization and irrigation equipments on more than 500 plus equipments on that regard. So we have to scale up that, of course, to the scale. And of course, in the livestock sector, again, we are focused on some commodities where we have, like the commercialization cluster and the crop sector, we have now establishing commodity village for livestock, like the dairy village, the poultry village, so that they can produce for scale and connect them to the market as well in that regard. So Ethiopia is taking very strong and bold policy measures as well in terms of removing tariffs for technologies like mechanization, and as it is already indicated by panelists from the African Union, we are of course providing seeds to our farmers. A good example is that Ethiopia was a net importer of wheat in the last 50 years. Now in the last 3-4 years, we have created a national wheat initiative where we have produced wheat not only during the rainy season, but also with irrigation during the dry season. Now this year, Ethiopia declared a zero net import season for Ethiopia, which is really a big success. Now we want to scale up that into other crops in the coming seasons and in the coming years. So for us in Ethiopia, harmonizing existing programs, scaling up the best practices into our food system framework is our number one priority in the coming years. And of course, after identifying our gaps, after country diagnostics, we'll mobilize the development partners who are working with us to really support us in terms of building capacities and of course scaling up those best practices we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the focus of this panel now is the next steps forward. And Minister, you've really set out some clear next steps for your country and highlighting this point about platforms for cooperation, this governance structures being so crucial in order to pave that way forward. Minister, you've been a powerful advocate, as you have put it, for placing the human being at the center of all the work we do to transform our agri-food system. We've heard previously about listening and about participation, but can you describe one way that you're taking this human-centered approach to paving the way forward for food systems transformation in Honduras?
Hello. First of all, thank you for this invitation. It is an honor to be here, but also it is a great responsibility. Like it is a great responsibility to be Minister or Secretariat of Agriculture and Livestock in any country. But in my own country, in Honduras, the characteristics are kind of different. I came from a country where 7.3 people out of 10 live under poverty. And before answering that question, I think that what we really need to do is to think about how to overcome poverty related to food security, food safety, and the other issues. I will move to Spanish now. Quiero agradecer esta invitación y agradecer a todos, al país de Italia que nos recibe aquí y las organizaciones, por supuesto, Naciones Unidas, FAO, PMA y los bancos que estuvieron ayer. Muy interesantes estas conversaciones. Yo creo que un punto muy importante es el punto también que no podemos olvidar, es el tema de la pobreza de los países. Somos como 3 equipos en el mundo corriendo aceleradamente y un equipo es la economía, el otro es el ambiente y el otro es la sociedad. Y la economía ha ganado el primer lugar, se ha apropiado por años, por décadas de todo este planeta. El ambiente nos está importando muy poco y estamos reunidos hablando de cambio climático y encontrando formas de cómo mitigar y cómo adaptarnos. Les quiero decir que los países pequeños de renta baja, como mi país Honduras, que tiene una gran riqueza natural todavía, pero que tiene renta baja y que eso le limita a poder lograr seguridad alimentaria al 100%. En estos países, el tema ambiental nos está ganando, ya nos ganó la economía, ahora es el tema ambiental, pero sabemos cuáles son los problemas. Y el otro tema, creo que para lograr ese desarrollo que buscamos, y debo también reconocer la importancia que tiene este evento. Es un evento sumamente importante porque nos hace reflexionar a los tomadores de decisiones sobre qué es hacia dónde debe de ir este trabajo. En este caso de Sustainable Development Goals, miren, estamos a unos 2.300 días para llegar al 2030. Por supuesto que vamos a lograr mucho, hemos avanzado increíblemente desde 2000 hasta acá, pero todavía tenemos grandes retos por lograr y uno de ellos tiene que ver con alimentación y tiene que ver con agricultura. En ese sentido, yo creo que hemos aprendido como seres humanos, todos aquí, a contar esos indicadores. Sabemos cuánto necesitamos, pero no estamos enfocándonos en cómo acelerar ese desarrollo. Y creo que desde la parte humana, el clamor es humano de cómo acelerarlo y cómo realmente erradicar esa pobreza. Hay mucho que hacer, tenemos muchísimas lecciones aprendidas y cada vez que hay una intervención de cada país nos dice lo que está haciendo. Y en muchos de esos casos estamos haciendo lo mismo. Creo que lo más fácil es recoger las mejores lecciones aprendidas técnicas y les aseguro que tenemos respuestas técnicas. Pero hay un par de puntos en los que no tenemos respuestas. Es uno en el que el enfoque humano, todos los programas y modelos de desarrollo deben de partir de la persona y deben de terminar en la persona. En mi caso y en mi país, la primera necesidad grande es asegurar alimento. Y asegurar alimento no es fácil en un país que ha sido por 20 años entre los primeros 3 lugares más vulnerables al cambio climático, por ejemplo, donde creo que el mejor papel que podemos hacer desde el gobierno es crear esas políticas de Estado del sector agroalimentario que se vinculen con leyes y reglamentos, que conecten en el mediano y el largo plazo esa infraestructura que es necesaria, llámese cosecha de agua, reservorios de agua, etcétera. Pero hay algo bien importante que no quiero dejar de decir aquí, y es el tema de reenfocar, reevaluar lo que es la agricultura. Todos tenemos que ayudarnos para que se replantee y se revalorice el valor del producto agrícola. En primer lugar, lo que cuesta producir en términos de una dependencia excesiva de external inputs. Tenemos que movernos a una bioeconomía y a una bioinsumos y a un bioconsumo nuestro que también se repercute en la salud. El otro punto que quiero señalar es financiamiento. El financiamiento no es humano, tal y como se da y como se ha venido dando. No es que los países de renta baja somos incapaces de manejar financiamiento, es que no podemos con las tasas de intereses, porque las necesidades son tan grandes en un país que usted invierte en una cosa y no le alcanza para la otra. Creo que los bancos que estuvieron ayer aquí presentes hicieron un buen discurso y felicitaciones por ello. Y mi país tiene préstamos con todos estos bancos. Quiero hacer un llamado a los bancos para que nos ayudemos a hacer más humano el cambio del desarrollo en términos de acelerar los procesos de tiempo que llevan a ejecución de los proyectos. Todos aquí tenemos préstamos que tardan 2, 3, 5 meses en lograr aprobaciones de bancos para ejecutar proyectos. Eso no nos va a lograr, no nos va a permitir lograr Sustainable Development Goals. Y el último que voy a decir tiene que ver con comercio, y es la humanización del comercio. Los productores son los y las productores el sector más sacrificado de la sociedad en términos del trabajo físico, pero devaluados. Tenemos que evaluar de nuevo el trabajo digno de la agricultura y el valor de ese producto. Estamos dispuestos a pagar cualquier cantidad por cualquier otro producto, pero no por agricultura. Y con ello van otros elementos que ya son también del comercio internacional, de los precios internacionales, de los tratados de libre comercio que tenemos que revisar. Latinoamérica es una zona de producción para el resto del mundo, quizás 38-40%. Invertimos el 75% de nuestra agua dulce en producir para exportar, pero tenemos hambre, tenemos inseguridad alimentaria y tenemos que revisar esos modelos hacia un enfoque más humano. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Secretary, for sharing with us those powerful words about humanizing the food system and humanizing what we are doing. Thank you very much. Secretary General Gleeson, Ireland has been developing strategies for the Irish agri-food sector for, I believe, over 20 years now. And in 2021, you took the step of placing sustainability and nutrition much more centrally in your new Food Vision 2030, a 10-year strategy, with the ambitious vision of Ireland becoming a world leader in sustainable food systems over the next decade. So what are your key priorities towards the next stock-taking moment to ensure you move forward towards this ambition?
Well, thanks. And it's interesting to hear what other people have, because the challenges facing Ireland are not the challenges facing everybody. And we have a very well-developed food production system. We have very well-developed food safety systems. We're a very large net exporter of food. But I think we've taken a very, I mean, what strikes me about the discussion here is that the measures necessary to deliver change are the same everywhere, no matter what the challenges are. What we do affects real people, and we have to mobilize real people, get them around the table, people with different views, different opinions, and we have to ensure they're pointed in the right direction. So the mechanism we've had in Ireland, as you say, for 20 years now, is we've had 5 successive 10-year plans, which we review every 5 years. And we bring everybody around the table, from farm bodies to academics to state agencies to environmental NGOs. And we try and agree on a vision, and I think that vision piece is really, really important, because you can get buried in the detail and people will disagree on things. But I think we have to try and agree a vision and then make progress incrementally towards that vision. So we've been very successful in doing that in Ireland, I think. And this is not a report. Our latest version is called Food Vision 2030. And as you say, our ambition is to be a world leader in sustainable food systems. But it's not a report that sits on a shelf. So we then have a high-level implementation committee chaired by the minister. And that political buy-in is so critically important. You need that political buy-in. And all of the state agencies are pulled around the table. And where there are blockages, where there are difficulties, and there are, we try and remove those roadblocks through this very high-level committee. And I think it's important to say one thing: none of this is easy. If anybody says this is easy anywhere, it just isn't. So farmers feel they're overburdened with the things they have to do to meet the sustainability challenge, and I understand why that is, because sometimes it affects their competitiveness. The environmental NGOs feel they're not being listened to for many years. The political system, it's difficult for politicians because sometimes tough decisions have to be made that will affect their constituents. For civil servants like me, we tend to take a very logical approach to addressing these things, but sometimes we're not great at the legitimacy issue. Sometimes we're not great at understanding the sensitivities of the people around the table. So I think that the important thing is to bring the relevant stakeholders around the table, to cohere them around a vision, and then to make sure that you align national policy with that vision. And that's what we've tried to do in Ireland. And so we have a CAP strategic plan, for example, that focuses very much on maintaining that balance of economic and environmental and social sustainability. Because if you miss out on any one of those things are equally important. If you miss any of those, I think you won't succeed. And the reality is that people like me don't bring about change. The people who bring about change are the people who produce our food, the people who fish our seas, the real people whose businesses are affected by the decisions we take. So I think it's critically important to bring them around the table, cohere them around the vision, And there'll be lots of arguments about how we deliver the vision, but we have very specific action plans, and they align now with government policy. By the way, this is a never-ending process. So you asked me how we'll report progress in 2025. Well, I can tell you that I won't be coming here and saying, it's done now, we've fixed everything. That's not going to be the way it is. So I think you have to be relentless, but I think if you become paralyzed by the scale of the challenge, the risk is that you won't do anything. So I think you really have to have the vision, but you have to focus on making progress and bringing people with you as you do that. Because if you leave people behind, the people who have to deliver this change, not us, the people who have to deliver this change, then I think you've made a mistake. So in Ireland, we're trying to advance things in that way, but it's difficult and it's relentless and it never stops.
Well, thanks for your honesty and frankness in sharing with us the reality that this is hard, but highlighting the importance of bringing people with us as we go around a vision, echoing the points made earlier about humanizing this work. Mr. Denton, you're Secretary General of International Chamber of Commerce, the voice of world business. You champion the global economy as a force for economic growth, job creation and prosperity. What do you see as the most important role for the private sector in accelerating the way forward for food systems transformation?
Well, first of all, thanks very much for inviting me to participate today. By the way, it's great to sit on a panel where you've got the mix with politicians, civil society, also civil services, you would say, but also next generation, because I think my opening comment is really that we're actually confronting some wicked problems here, and the idea that one entity, one meeting, one process is ever going to deliver a sustainable outcome is preposterous. The way I see it, and the way in which I position the ICC, is really to play in the space which answers the question. You tell me a global problem that can be solved without the private sector, and frankly you can't. And the challenge for the private sector is actually to be a legitimate player, frankly, and I think I have to be really honest here, a legitimate player as a legitimate stakeholder in creating value for the global world, which is why the ICC's mission, which is enabling business worldwide to secure peace, prosperity, and opportunity for all. We're a not-for-profit. We have a seat at the United Nations. We advise the G20, etc. And what I've been striving to do is create legitimacy for the global private sector to participate in not sitting outside observing and yelling, but actually being in the room. And of course, one of the problems we see is the private sector, which is a key stakeholder in resolving food systems issue, is not actually in the room enough. And so when I think about how we've repositioned the ICC, I just want to share a couple of data points with you. Since I'm an Australian, since I took over and ran the organization out of Paris, we've completely changed the network. We're now in just on 170 countries. Almost 70% are in the global south. Agriculture and food matters to us because it matters to the business constituencies in the global south and obviously in the developed north as well. Issues like the crisis that emerged from Russia-Ukraine on food systems matters to us. And so the legitimacy was reflected, of the ICC was reflected when Secretary General Guterres created the Global Crisis Response Group. He brought the ICC in for the first time ever, structurally, into a response to a global crisis. He saw the need to bring the private sector in, and he brought us in it. And it's a little-known fact that the Black Sea Agreement was actually conceived in my office, and we took it to the Secretary General as a pressing need because we were feeling in Ecuador, in Honduras, in Africa, in Lebanon, the extraordinary crisis on food prices and lack of access. So the ICC created an innovation, which is something I think was sort of value. The point I've been trying to make is we also have to shift this debate, and even on food, it's not about moral imperatives alone. I've got to be really candid with you. I got involved in COVAX, where there was a lot of yelling at the private sector. The reality is moral pressure will not shift the dial here. We actually have to have market incentives to support that. I heard the distinguished speaker from the European Union talk before about the importance of trade aligning with sustainability. But until, frankly, you shift that part of the global financial sector that deals with trade finance, you will actually not get there, which is why, like the ICC, and I offered this morning in my meeting with the DG FAO, we're taking the whole $10 trillion, which is trade finance related in the global financial architecture, and working to create a sustainable trade finance framework. I took that to Glasgow. I've actually developed the first pilot in Sharm el-Sheikh last year, and in Q4 this year in Dubai, I'll take a pilot which will seek to link SMEs and businesses in the food sector to a sustainable trade finance system. You can't change yelling at the private sector. You can't change by asking for philanthropy here. There's not enough philanthropy in the world, and frankly, even with the good Secretary General here of the Irish Ministry, there's not enough government money in the world. The money in the world is going to have to come from effective private-public partnerships, and that has to reflect the creation of an alliance which is built around social impact with business models attached to it. What I hope we've been able to do at the ICC is to create a vehicle which is able to actually not talk about the problem, but actually find a way to resolve this issue. We do it with trade facilitation, where we've created a model where we can actually have the public, the private, and government sectors all talking as one, as we introduce e-phytosanitary in Somalia and all over the world. So it can be done. My job now is to scale it. One reason I'm here is that I want this opportunity to be better known globally, because we actually want to integrate the private sector as part of the solution to the food systems crisis that we confront. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Some really important points there, particularly interesting on the finance side, to think that these financial issues that we've been discussing have come up quite a lot is inherently connected to the private sector system. So thank you for raising that. Ms. Karabo, you are Executive Director of the Food Rights Alliance in Uganda, and you work on promoting the right to food for all. What's your vision for what we all need to do next to actually implement change in food systems rather than just talk about it?
Thank you so much. And on behalf of the entire civil society fraternity for this great opportunity to be part of this gathering, but also the exchange of knowledge and ideas. As a representative of civil society on the National Food Systems Coordination Committee back home, but at the same time, the chairperson for the Civil Society Scaling Up Nutrition, again in my country. It's a great honor, and just to reaffirm that I'm in the right place, at the right time, meeting the right people. Action number one is about mobilizing and organizing voice and not noise. Everybody is talking about the humanization, the participation, the bringing of the people on the table, which is true, but these people should come with a competent voice and not noise. And with a competent voice, we need to invest in organizing and preparing this voice competently to come and be part of shaping the decisions at whatever table. So as we vie to get as many people on the table as possible, these people should come competently. And this requires us to invest. Unfortunately, people think that government needs money, which is true, but we also need money as civil society who are at the task of organizing and mobilizing these people. If we are going to have mutual accountability, if we are going to be able to monitor, that people should come competently, and that voice should be voice and not noise. The second issue that needs to be done is to remind everybody here that we are discussing a human rights issue. Food is a human right. And in the definition of that human right, no person desires to be fed. So in whatever discussion and decisions that we make at all levels, it should be decisions that create an enabling environment for the people to feed themselves adequately on healthy, nutritious, and sustainable diets at all the time. So we should wear the faces and the lenses for human rights. I've had my colleague here from the ICC. Yes, it is not about the public-private partnership. You need to add another P, the public-private people partnership, because the discussions of transforming food systems is about the people. It's about their food. They must actually be at the center and be felt as competitive actors in this whole transformation agenda. So the people should be put at the center, and their voices should matter, and their voices should be competent. That is when we are going to have a whole stream of food transformation that takes care of sovereignty, that respects the people, that honors people in their own right and how they feed, and so even how their food that they feed on is produced. In that case, we shall be able to achieve the people first, the planet next, and perhaps the profit can follow. If we go less than that, then we are going to have profit first and forget about the people and the planet. After making all these profits and enjoying them, we remain people that are living in this planet, and we should strive to be that, such that we can pass over the food system to the next generation. So the transformation should not be able to leave the people behind. It is their transformation. And however little or narrow their voices could sound, they could make a lot of sense. I submit.
Thank you very much indeed for highlighting again the importance of putting people at the center and making this very nice observation of the importance of voice, not noise. Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, you're currently active in advancing youth policy positions for key actions on food and agriculture in Latin America and the Caribbean. From the perspective of young people, what is a key change that really needs to happen as we move forward in the next 2 years and move forward with food systems transformation?
Thank you so much for the invitation. Our current food systems are not working for people and the planet. This is the reason why we are all here today, to translate the solution into action through the national pathways. When implementing these decisions, we need to take into account the views of the largest population of the world, which is youth people. Good morning, my name is Juan David Caro Alvarez. I am a technician and rural extensionist, and I represent the Youth Policy Board of the World Food Forum and WIPAR, Youth Professional Agricultural and Rural Development. Last year, through the Youth Policy Board at the World Food Forum, we conducted a wide consultation with youth people to come to a consensus of what the top priorities areas we as youth people want to prioritize in our regions to allow for better agri-food systems. In the political positions that we have developed, we have found some of the key common points in all the regions. First, support smallholders, family farming, indigenous people, women, and youth in food systems. Second, stimulate, promote, and invest in local markets. Third, environmental and food education and the school levels. Four, effective collaboration and partnership with all the stakeholders. With the pandemic, in fact, I have seen an increase in opportunities for farmers. Now there is more attention and discussion on food producers on how they can be supported and address their needs. However, a paradigm shift is necessary, and we need an agroecological approach, which views the components of agroecosystems and their interactions, from promoting regenerative livestock and agriculture to promoting social justice, youth participation, nurturing our cultural identity, and dynamizing rural economies. Facilitating this mindset and behavior change take time, but it's possible. How can this be best put into practice? One of the best ways has been peer-to-peer learning and teaching. We need to connect and understand with farmers and learn from their perspective and co-create solutions. As youth person working with farmers and dairy livestock in Chile, Guatemala, Colombia, and Peru, we conduct farmer-to-farmer teachings which was highly effective and saw the change moving from intensive livestock production to regenerative pastoral system, helping the soil and carbon sequestration. Other example came from Waipar, Peru. Initiatives such as the School of Rural Youth, where groups of youth professionals and rural leaders formulate projects adjust to the reality and needs to the rural areas and propose innovative initiatives that add value to their products and transform their life. Financial support is necessary. I see this as an example of investment through the lens of a systemic and pragmatic approach. This initiative saw powerful levels of benefits, empowering youth people, empowering farmers, exchange of traditional and scientific knowledge, and seeing the change in the way of production which benefit the claims. Supporting grassroots organizations allow the connection of people of all areas and also open opportunities for youth people to get to know and get involved in organizations of FAO, International Coalition, and other ones, like me here now. And last but not least, we must stop demanding that our farmers, indigenous people, and family farmers produce more and more and more food. The cities must change. They cannot be just a mouth that demands food. They must also produce food. As peri-urban farmer, I invite you to meet my 60-meter-square farm in my second floor in Fusagasugá, Colombia, where we have an aquaponic system with tilapias. Also, we have sweet potatoes, 4 varieties of chilies, garlic, mince, tomatoes, beans, lulo, figs, and also Guinea pigs and quails, currently producing between 20 and 30% of the food of my family needs. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those powerful words and highlighting this importance of peer-to-peer learning and highlighting the importance of doing things differently for the next generation. Thank you very much indeed. So we are still going to be discussing the ways forward and the next steps until 12:30. I'd like to ask the panel to stay here as we listen to the perspectives on the floor about the next steps for the way forward. We do have 17, in fact, I think it's more like 19 speakers who have registered. I'm afraid we probably won't get to you all. I'd like to apologize for that, but more registered than we had time for. And I will be keeping you strictly to time. But we really do want to hear your key messages, so start with those. And I would like to start with Japan.
Hello, everyone. As we all know, climate change is the most serious factor in global food security. Japan sets the strategy for sustainable food systems, Midori, as the national pathway towards the transformation of food systems, and relevant law has already entered into force. In this context, Japan, as the G7 presidency this year, first on building sustainable agriculture and food systems at the G7 Agriculture Ministers meeting in Miyazaki and at the G7 Hiroshima Summit. At the summit, G7 countries confirmed that access to affordable, safe, and nutritious food is the foundation for all the people to live with dignity. And based on these outcomes, Japan considers that there are 3 important points for food system transformation: improving productivity in a sustainable manner, maximizing the use of existing domestic agricultural resources, and utilizing all forms of innovation. For example, how to reduce methane emission from paddy rice fields is of high interest, especially in Asia. One of the solutions is to drain water from paddy fields for a certain period during cultivation. Research shows that Methane emissions can be reduced by 30% without reducing yield by controlling the duration. Considering that these techniques and others can be used in Asia and other regions, we published a list of these technologies for addressing climate change for your reference. At a side event hosted by the Japanese government yesterday, we shared some other experiences.
Minister, I must ask you to wrap up now, please.
Now, there is no one-size-fits-all solution for our journey. Japan will continue to collaborate with various global stakeholders. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Japan, for bringing our attention to those key issues. I'd now like to turn to Algeria, if the delegate of Algeria is in the room, please. Please, go ahead.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين. سيدتي الرئيسة، الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أولا تحية خالصة وأخوية بين الجزائر بلاد الأخوة والسلامة والحرية. اسمحوا لي في البداية أن أهني وأشكر كل من ساهم في تنظيم هذا الاجتماع التقييمي والذي سيخصص لدراسة مسألة التحويل النظمي الغذائي. كما تعلمون، عرضت بلداننا مختلف الرؤى والالتزامات بهذا الخصوص بغية تحقيق مسح الأمن الغذائي المستدام والتنمية الاجتماعية والاقتصادية والمساهمة في تحقيق أهداف خطة 2030 للتنمية المستدامة. بذلت الكثير من البلدان جهودا معتبرة وحققت العديد من تلك الأهداف التي سطرتها في إطار خطط العمل الوطنية الهادفة لتطوير نظم غذائية أكثر استدامة ومتانة في وجه التحديات التي نواجهها جميعا في الوقت الحالي، لا سيما الأزمات الاقتصادية والكوارث الطبيعية وندرة الموارد المائية والتغيرات المناخية. في إطار مواجهة تلك التحديات، أدرجت الجزائر مسألة الأمن الغذائي في صلب الأولويات الوطنية ضمن استراتيجيتها التنموية الشاملة، إضافة إلى سعيها لتوفير كافة الشروط لضمان ديمومة الأنظمة الغذائية الوطنية وتحسين مؤشرات الأمن الغذائي من خلال بناء قطاع زراعي مستدام وتعزيز القطاعات الداعمة للنظم الغذائية وتطوير البحث والابتكار. ولدينا برنامج عمل وخارطة الطريق إلى آفاق 2025 2030 2035. وعملت بلادي لتجسيد الأهداف التي سطرت خلال سنة 2021، وذلك بالتشاور والتنسيق مع كافة الأطراف الوطنية المعنية على تحقيق الخطوات التالية. وباختصار فقط 3 نقاط أساسية، وهي تعزيز الأمن الغذائي من خلال المضاعفة من إنتاج أغذية ذات قيمة صحية ومتنوعة مع ضمان شروط الوقاية ضد الأمراض المعدية والمنتقلة والمنقولة عن طريق المياه. ثانيا، إحلال العديد من الواردات من خلال إنتاج محلي وفير وعبر تطوير برامج تنمية للعديد من الشعب الفلاحية الاستراتيجية مثل الحبوب، البقول الجافة، الحليب، اللحوم الحمراء واللحوم البيضاء. وثالثا، تطوير وتعزيز الأنظمة الزراعية الابتكارية كالزراعة العمودية والممارسة الزراعية الأقل استهلاكا للمياه والطاقة. نتيجة هذه الجهود تحصلت الجزائر على تغطية كل احتياجاتها على مستوى أكثر من 75% بالنسبة لاحتياجات المواطنين. وقطاع الفلاحة سيساهم في الوقت الحاضر على أكثر
Thank you, Minister.
1 minute. If you want.
Just one very final point.
Thank you. وفي أكثر من نتائج أكثر من 14% من المنتوج الداخلي العام. وفي شراكة لا يمكن بناء من خلال الوفاء بمجموعة من الشروط الموضوعية والتي أهمها على نقطتين فقط قبل النهاية: العمل على توفير الدعم الفني والمالي الكافي لبلدان النامية من أجل مساعدتها على تحسين أهداف تطوير أنظمتها الغذائية، وثانيا توفير أفضل الشروط لنقل التكنولوجيات، تبادل الخبرات والمعارف لتسهيل
Thank you very much, Minister. We must move on.
والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Thank you. We must move on because we have many people to share, but you have made some very critical points about innovation, echoing the point also made by Japan and the efforts that you are making. Thank you. Could I now ask Slovenia to take the floor? Slovenia. Do we have the delegate of Slovenia in the room? If not, can we move to Saudi Arabia?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب المعالي الحضور الكرام، يسعدني أن أشكر باسم المملكة العربية السعودية الأمانة العامة للأمم المتحدة على عقد هذه القمة الهامة حول النظم الغذائية المستدامة، وأود أن أعبر عن امتناني لجمهورية إيطاليا على استضافتهم لهذا المؤتمر الذي يعقد في وقت تشهد فيه النظم الغذائية تحديات إضافية جديدة تتمثل في الصراعات والصدمات الاقتصادية بالإضافة إلى التحديات التقليدية، مما يتطلب منا مزيدا من العمل الجماعي المشترك والالتزام بما توافقنا عليه من مسارات تحقق التحول المستدام في النظم الغذائية. تبذل المملكة العربية السعودية أو تبنت المملكة العربية السعودية تحويل النظم الغذائية بإعادة هيكلة وبناء منظومتها وإطلاق استراتيجيات وطنية تعنى بالأمن الغذائي والزراعة والمياه والبيئة، وإنشاء هيئة مختصة للأمن الغذائي والتركيز على توطين التقنيات الزراعية الحديثة ورقمنة القطاع وتقوية الاقتصاد الريفي وتمكين المرأة والشباب وتحديد خط الأساس للفقد والهدر الغذائي وتبني حلول فعالة لخفض وتحسين الأنماط الاستهلاكية وزيادة الاستثمارات الزراعية المسؤولة واستقطابها. ساهم في نجاح تحويل النظم الغذائية زيادة نسبة تمويل الاستثمارات الزراعية من صندوق التنمية الزراعي بحوالي 1000% خلال ال5 سنوات الأخيرة، ورفع حجم القروض الزراعية إلى نحو 7 مليارات ريال سعودي في العام 2022، وتحفيز القطاع الخاص لتنويع مصادر استيراد الغذاء وبناء احتياطيات غذائية استراتيجية مستدامة، بالإضافة إلى تخصيص مبلغ وقدره 12 مليار ريال لبرنامج التنمية الريفية الزراعية المستدامة. انعكس ذلك إيجاباً على ارتفاع إنتاجنا الزراعي إلى ما يزيد عن 11 مليون طن، بما حقق وفرة للمنتجات واستقرار في الأسعار ورفع نسبة الاكتفاء الذاتي لكثير من السلع. اليوم نحن بحاجة إلى تكامل الأدوار وتوحيد الجهود الوطنية والإقليمية والدولية للبناء على ما تحقق واستمرار رفع كفاءة منظومة إنتاج الأغذية وجودتها وتطوير أسواق الأغذية وتعزيز التجارة الدولية وسلاسل الإمداد بهدف تحويل الأنظمة الغذائية لتصبح أكثر مرونة واستدامة وقدرة على الصمود. في الختام أؤكد على الالتزام ودعم المملكة العربية السعودية للجهود الرامية لبناء نظم غذائية تساهم في تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much indeed for sharing with us these exciting ways forward that you are planning in your country. I'd now like to turn to Bhutan. Could I ask if Bhutan is in the room, please? Okay, I'd now like to turn to Madagascar. Madagascar.
Merci, Madame Chair. Bonjour à tous. Je vous transmets également les salutations et vifs remerciements du président de Madagascar et de son gouvernement pour cette invitation. La transformation de nos systèmes alimentaires à Madagascar est confrontée à plusieurs défis, notamment la vulnérabilité exacerbée par les effets du changement climatique, la croissance démographique et les crises mondiales, et en particulier, le sud de Madagascar a été fortement touché par la malnutrition suite à une succession de sécheresses. Plusieurs actions ont été menées afin de contribuer à la transformation des systèmes alimentaires, dont l'approvisionnement de 450 000 exploitations agricoles familiales en intrants agricoles adaptés au changement climatique, la formation de jeunes agripreneurs la mise en place de complexes novateurs tels que les centres de réhabilitation nutritionnelle et médicale, regroupant des centres de récupération nutritionnelle, des banques alimentaires et des réfectoires. À cela s'ajoutent les efforts relatifs aux infrastructures hydro-agricoles et routières, bien qu'ils soient encore insuffisants. Parmi les résultats obtenus, on note particulièrement sur la nutrition une amélioration d'environ 0,86 points par an du taux de retard de croissance pour les enfants de 0 à 5 ans. Suite à ces 2 années de mise en œuvre de la feuille de route nationale, nous confirmons les points à retenir suivants. Il faut que l'approche intégrée et inclusive soit retenue et que l'établissement de la plateforme multi-acteurs qui permet d'internaliser les efforts nécessaires pour englober la multiplicité des secteurs impliqués aussi soit renforcé. Par ailleurs, il y a aussi la nécessité de poursuivre les efforts en matière d'optimisation des investissements publics et privés pour une agriculture durable, en matière d'accroissement continu des actions en faveur de la résilience face aux changements climatiques et aux chocs divers, et en matière d'intensification du renforcement des capacités et des connaissances ainsi que des recherches. Ces actions impliquent bien sûr la mobilisation de nos efforts tant au niveau local qu'international afin de garantir l'atteinte des ODD. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much for making this, sharing your learnings that this inclusive approach and multi-stakeholder platforms are critical to the changes that you are planning to make in Madagascar. Thank you. I'd now like to turn to Mozambique. Could I ask if Mozambique is in the room? Yes.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Mozambique actions on transforming food systems have been framed by national expectations, interconnected with a country's development policies and strategies, and also with the Sustainable Development Goals and the African Union Agenda 2063. In this regard, in terms of practical actions, a package of economic acceleration measures with a greater focus on the development of structural agricultural sectors was established, and one of them is the reduction of tax burden on economic agents. The VAT, value-added tax, was reduced from 17 to 16. Exemption from value-added tax on imports and production factors for agriculture and electrification. There was also a reduction on corporate income tax from 32 to 10 in agriculture, aquaculture, and urban transport, as well as the establishment of tax incentives for new investment in key sectors of the economy, especially along the agricultural value chains. And there is also an increase in the number of extensionists from about 2,000 to 4,000 to give technical assistance to smallholder farmers in the country. There is also a new experience of recovery of degraded areas through reforestation. This is a first experience in our country. The promotion of access to electricity for rural areas, the increased coverage of population with access to drinking water in rural areas. There is also a promotion of use of clean renewable energy through solar panels for irrigation, processing, and other operations in agricultural value chain. So despite advances in the implementation of food system agenda in the country, some challenges are still there. We can name some of them, like the increase of productivity through improved seed. That is a very good, very big challenge for us still. There is also a post-harvest losses that are very high still due to poor conditions of the roads, transport infrastructures, I mean storage and production after harvest. So there is also a problem regarding to traditional issues that affect nutrition, education and health. There are all of us knowing problems of climate change and also problems regarding to finance.
Thank you very much, Minister. If I could ask you to just give a final word, or we can move on now. Thank you very much for making those, sharing with us your challenges and raising this issue of post-harvest losses. I wanted to pick that up because several people have mentioned this issue of food loss and waste, but also the clear plans and strategies that you're putting into place to move forward. Could I now turn to Nepal, please?
Giving me the floor. Your Excellency, the Director General of FAO, distinguished head of delegates and members of delegations, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share some experiences of Nepal on how food governance backed up a strong national policy is inevitable for the transformation of food systems. We understand that food systems encompass every person and process involved in growing, making, consumption, and what we do with food waste. In simple words, this term all about farm to fork and beyond. Our government's vision is to transform the existing food systems to more equitable, resilient, and sustainable ones. This very much aligns with the Sustainable Development Goal agenda, achieving zero hunger by 2030. We have prioritized strengthening food governance as key elements to backstop and steer the implementation of our food systems transformation strategic plan and pass the Right to Food and Food Sovereignty Act under the constitutional provision of right to food and food sovereignty. It is a legal basis for strengthening food governance at all levels of the governments, that is federal, provincial, and local. The Act guarantees every citizen shall have the right to food, right to be safe from the vulnerability to food insecurity, and the right to food sovereignty. The Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development is the key responsible authority for implementing the Act. Under the ministry, there is a Department of Food Technology and Quality Control as a competent food safety authority and key regulatory body. The Act envisions that institutional mechanism of food councils at federal and provincial level and a food coordination committee at the local level. This arrangement promotes local solutions of the local problems. Other key provisions are development of national food plan, contribution-based incentives to farmers, address the issues of climate change, compensation to farmers for loss and damage, food stock and distribution mechanism, etc. Now, our immediate priorities are development of national food plan in line with food systems national pathways, identification and classification of farmers, identification of food insecure households for targeted response, localization of food systems actions, restructuring of institutional mechanism and capacity development. We are trying our best to address these priorities, but we need support from our development partners. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nepal, for setting out a clear list of priorities for your way forward there. Could I please ask if Zambia is in the room to give your intervention?
We are here, and thank you very much, moderator. And would like to thank the government of Italy for hosting us here. I'm an education minister, And hopefully you see what I will say about homegrown school meals program. Yesterday, Christina, the former Minister of Finance, said this is an investment. We go beyond that ourselves to say that it is also a public good because it has attracted so many kids to come to school. We have about 2 million on our schedule of school feeding kids. Out of a population of Zambia has a population of 20 million. And then the school children, about 6.2 million. And now, because the president declared free education last year, we have an influx of many children now coming to school. So we are likely to start feeding more than 4 million children in school. What have we done now in order to moderate this? What we have done is that the kids themselves must learn how to feed themselves as well. So we have declared production unit in every school so that kids also learn how to produce food. It starts from the learning process. We are all talking about agriculture around here. If we do not take it to the kids that are actually learning, then we'll be missing a point. What have we done again? We are also aware of that these kids that we feed, they grow, the nutrition, and they also have, if you like, the intellect. We are now talking about climate change. What have we done to these kids? We want the kids to start planting trees every year. We have got about 10 million kids in school. And then we are saying that every time if they be planting, every time they plant one tree, they'll be planting 30,000 trees or 30,000 trees against the backdrop of a population of 20 million. So they will cater for every person in Zambia. So that also makes our children to understand climate change rather than to be superficial. First, school feeding, they produce their own food, and then they mitigate their own climate. This is what we are doing. The landmass of Zambia is 752,000 square kilometers. Out of that landmass, only 0.6% is cropped. 42% of that landmass is arable land, and only 0.2% is actually irrigated. So we have an opportunity ourselves to do, but financing, because of the fiscal space that we have, sometimes delays us to do the things that we would rather have to do. But homegrown thinking is the best that you can do, especially as a country. We have put over 1 million small-scale farmers that we are supporting as a government. So we know that we can attain all these things that we are talking about, zero hunger in our country. But it's unacceptable also for ourselves to say that we have got vast land, 42% of arable land is there. 40% of all the water bodies in Southern Africa lie in Zambia. So we have no excuse.
Thank you very much.
That we're talking.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good to have a Minister of Education in the room. And very exciting to hear about the multi-level solutions that you're putting into place for your young people, and echoing the previous speaker, local solutions to local problems. Could I ask if Azerbaijan, please, is available to give your intervention?
Thank you very much. Dear participants, by gathering the global community under one roof for the one common target, the Food System Summit is an exceptional opportunity in delivering progress on all United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. As a member state, Azerbaijan is actively involved in this fair global process. Azerbaijan has been one of the first countries to undertake mainstreaming, acceleration, and a policy support mission for the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. In this regard, concrete policy and programming steps have been taken to accelerate the goals nationally. Entirely digitalized agriculture, healthy dietary, climate-smart production, fostered food processing, improved scientific approach, and rural development of the liberated territories are defined as key actions in our articulated national pathway tracks for national food systems transformation. Our main target is to diversify the economy by using the natural resources which we have. Primarily, the attention is aimed at the development of agriculture and the transformation of national food systems. The main goal is to balance this transformation with environmental protection, food security, resilient livelihood, and health nutrition. Strengthened state support measures, increased production by application of innovations, formed competitive and liberated market, provided extension services with leaving no one behind, ensured easy access to finance and market. Youth and women empowerment were among the main outcomes of our development reforms. Azerbaijan is now actively investing in the digitalization of the country's agriculture sector. Currently, all agricultural services and state concessions are easily accessible in Azerbaijan via the recently launched e-agriculture system. Moreover, we are conducting public awareness and extension services to ensure our farmers better orientation to digital transformation. Azerbaijan is now entering a strategic phase in its new post-conflict recovery period. Now the main goal for the coming years is the rural development and reconstruction of the liberated territories. Those territories also increase our agricultural power by restoring more than 120,000 hectares of agricultural land. Climate-friendly and green agriculture development in those territories stays on the top of our evolution agenda. Now the global food system is suffering from the uncertainty of climate change. These change scenarios highlight the need to improve management practices to adapt the change. Climate mitigation, advocating modern irrigation systems, water loss prevention, land consolidation, and soil health protection are the key topics of our agenda agro-development policy. Our major state support mechanisms and measures also address the stimulation of farmers for the application of modern farming and irrigation technologies. Dear colleagues, boosted constructive cooperation via its different forms will be the main tool to make our common vision to become true. Azerbaijan, distinguished as an internationally reliable partner, is always ready to contribute to building effective collaboration. In the end, I wish you success in the work of the summit and feel confident that our combined efforts will have a substantial impact on global sustainable food systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The comment was made from the panel earlier about very different contexts, but some common measures, and I think they're coming out very clearly, and it was a good example in what you shared you're taking forward in your country. Can I ask if the Minister from Malawi is in the room, please?
Well,
Malawi.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Please.
Well, as Malawi is looking ahead to the future with great anticipation, and as a nation, we do recognize the critical role of collaboration as well as international cooperation in addressing the global challenges. It is through international partnerships that we think we're going to thrive moving into the future. Let me also indicate that Malawi, we have embraced the SDGs as a guiding framework to tackle poverty, hunger, as well as gender inequalities. While we are progressing, moving forward, it has also been made known that we can't do things the way we've been doing in the past, but we need to embrace change. Malawi has recognized the interconnectedness of international cooperation, and we believe that we can address the root causes of poverty, foster inclusive economic growth, as well as promote environmental conservations. As climate change poses a great and significant threat to countries worldwide, and Malawi not being an exception, the adverse of climate change has extreme effect on food insecurity, as well as it has a huge impact on our nation's development. As you all know, we've faced a lot of deaths and destruction because of Cyclone Freddy, which devastated a third of our country this year. We must strive to strengthen global cooperation, enhance climate resilience, as well as facilitate access to green technologies to mitigate the impact of climate change. Malawi has already taken significant strides towards achieving its own national development goals, aligning them to the strategic development goals, and we have also fostered partnerships with various stakeholders, including government, civil society, as well as the private sector. However, we acknowledge the importance of global solidarity and sharing of the best practices to achieve greater impact as we collectively work together. We also recognize the role of technology and innovation We want to embrace advancements in renewable energy in agriculture sector because we believe this can help us to overcome long-standing challenges internationally as well as locally. These collaborations and sharing of knowledge in these fields can lead to transformative breakthroughs for our nation. Otherwise, we as Malawi are looking forward to the future, and we stand committed to play an active role in the global efforts towards sustainable development and climate action. I thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your steps forward. Could I ask if the Minister from the DRC is here, please? Okay, in that case, I would like to ask in the very last few minutes that we have, if Tuvalu is in the room, please.
Thank you, Moderator, Excellencies, and distinguished delegates. Let me first associate myself with previous speakers in thanking our distinguished panelists for enlightening us with their insightful presentation on this important topic. Excellencies, financing food system transformation in Tuvalu, while it is challenging, we have made some good progress since the last Food Summit. Since the launching of our sustainable healthy food security, we have been able to garner financial support from our development partners, particularly the Republic of China, Taiwan, for financing the implementation of our sustainable health food security strategy, and the European Union for financing our coconut rehabilitation program. With this financing support, we were able to also implement some of the project activities, such as the household level. We have food cubes and home gardens which provide reliable, nutritious sources of vegetable and root crops. At the community level, the government has leased land on islands for agricultural sites and nurseries to enhance food production and security. In terms of the challenges, Tuvalu being a small low-lying atoll nation, climate change, scarcity of resources, pests and diseases, and the food prices crisis are giving us difficulties in our food system transformation efforts. The way forward, we are focusing on increasing education about nutritious and healthy eating through programs by the Department of Health and stakeholders. These programs promote understanding of healthy food choices and provide cooking demonstration using local ingredients. The government is also facilitating access to healthy local food by establishing mechanisms that support income-generating opportunities for farmers and collaborating with existing markets. By implementing the Tuvalu Sustainable Health Food Security Strategy and addressing these challenges, Tuvalu calls for the support of development partners to assist us in transforming our food system and improving food security. Collaboration, innovation, and education will be key in achieving these goals and ensuring a sustainable and resilient future for Tuvalu's food system. I thank you, Moderator.
Thank you very much indeed for lending us those important perspectives. If I could, as the last intervention, ask if Sweden is still in the room to prepare to give your intervention.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you for giving me the floor. And also thank you to all the panelists for your interesting interventions. Let me start off by reiterating Sweden's commitment to continue working towards sustainable food systems transformation and reaching the SDGs. I'd like to share with you 2 examples from Sweden on how to adopt a food systems approach, covering all 3 dimensions of sustainability. The first example is a government assignment directed to the Swedish food and public health agencies to propose national objectives and indicators for sustainable and healthy food consumption. The goal is to create an overall structure and a clear direction for public and private actors working towards the shared goal of sustainable and healthy food consumption, and thereby reducing health risks and indirect negative effects of consumption patterns. The assignment also includes a specific focus on socio-economic vulnerable groups, as well as children and youth's food consumption, with a view of addressing socioeconomic differences and taking into account that food consumption habits are often established early in life. It's our hope that the national objectives and indicators to be proposed will guide a systematic approach to achieving sustainable and healthy food consumption patterns. And we hope that this will be could be replicated in other contexts. The second example I wish to raise is a joint initiative by 9 government agencies with mandates in health, food, environment, agriculture, water and innovation, procurement, sustainable growth, as well as competitiveness. Based on political policies covering the 3 dimensions of sustainability, the agencies jointly developed and adopted 10 shared strategic objectives for food systems transformation. These strategic objectives cover areas such as sustainable resource management, robust and enduring food security, ecosystem preservation, reduced climate impact, strengthen biodiversity, profitable production, and decent livelihoods. These initiatives were successfully in achieving several cross-sectorial and a systems approach. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much to Sweden. Thank you so much for the panelists and those of you in the room. What has struck me so forcefully about these numerous interventions that we've had from our 2 panels and from the floor is really there is so many solutions, so many things, so many activities, so many actions, whether it's working in the consumption part of the supply chain or in the production or anywhere in between, and in all of these different dimensions. But what has come out as so common between you all is simply the matter of people. That unless we bring the right people together at the right time for the right discussion to solve the problem, we simply will not be able to move on the way forward. And you have shared many different examples of the different ways that you are bringing people together and placing people at the center. So thank you very much to you. Thank you very much for the panel. And with that, I close this plenary. Thank you.